Hello and welcome back to the Dynasty Grind. My name is Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter and Threads and everywhere else you need that and stuff like that. We do a live show every Wednesday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time till we get tired, bored, run out of questions. Talking about, what are we talking about? Dynasty fantasy football in general. Feel free to leave whatever questions, comments, or thoughts you have about particularly that subject in whatever comment box and whatever streaming platform you happen to be watching us on. Tonight we have Dynasty Outhouse from the Trade Addicts podcast, who might even be here for a little longer than usual. Just a special little treat for us. And Zach Reed, as usual, from the Dynasty Dummies podcast. And happy to be here. Thanks very much. Let's talk about Noah Brown, I guess. I don't know. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Fantastic, Peter. How are you today? You look good.
Don't ask. Yeah, it's fine. What's new in your leagues? In your fantasy dynasty grind world? Good. Glad to hear it. Don't worry, I'll keep this show on the rails. It's
like I think. First of all, I'm very glad that my leagues don't have trade deadlines because, safe leagues, it's kickoff of week 12, which means we have one more week, and that gives me anxiety. Like, I'm very glad that I share my safe leagues team with John Bosch, who checks that stuff and is like more on top of that. Like I was telling you guys before, like I'm in like 20 something leagues, and there's a couple where I know that I'm rebuilding, so I don't really know what's on my team. Like, I'll go to MFL, click the submit lineup button, and I'll go and straight to the bottom and hit submit lineup because it'll tell me if I don't have enough people starting. Or if I hit submit, I just look to see if there's an O next to someone's name. And if they're out, I'll go back, submit lineup again, and just put someone else in. Like, I don't really look to see what's like, so I don't always have the biggest command of what's going on, but like John is like on top of it. But like now where I'm also at the point where my good teams, what I do is I set my lineup, and if I have to make a decision, I'm like, all right, who can I 2-for-1? Like, I've been going, I hit the player stats button where it shows the top scorers, and I'm like, all right, I go down the list of who rosters these players until I see a team that I realize that is not a playoff team. I'm like, okay, all right, let's see what I can do. So like, that's what I did today, because I did very little work today. I just wasn't feeling it, so I just. That's how I spent my morning. I went through my leagues, set my lineups, and if it felt like I had to make a decision, I was okay. Let's see what I can do. But like, if I had to do that now for the rest of the season, I hate trade deadlines.
Yeah, I think the start of the season I was mostly trying to find my feet like everyone else, but there's been like a 4-week period where I was trying to act strong and hard on the players we now think are top 12, like moving hard on Sam Laporta, hard on Stroud, hard on Downs, hard on Tank Dell. And I think we're past that now. I kind of assume that you can't be, even though my rank might be higher, I don't think the person in my league is particularly lower. So I don't think there's that. I think that window's kind of gone. So now I'm mostly I look at the competitive teams and think, I hope they value winning. Here, what will you give me for Jonnu Smith? Yeah, he sucks. No one wants him this offseason, but he might start for you this week. Can I add a second and get your late first? Or that won't work, but I just send that one out. But I start trying to sell points where it's appropriate or buy them where it isn't, which is the important part. It's the part I'm trying to emphasize more this year. On teams where I'm anywhere near the top 4, I'm trying to buy points in trades that I would like to get if I wasn't competitive. Trying to be the change that I want to see, as it were. Mostly I make those trades and then feel bad about them. But doggone it, I'm trying. Traded for Travis Etienne a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, giving up more than was comfortable. But he's a winning asset, and I was 4th in the league at 5-4. It's like, why not? But yeah, mostly it's logging in and realizing that half my players are not inaccurately on the IR, so I have to fix my roster before I can set a lineup. Yeah. That's kind of the season we're in. We're in Noah Brown season, baby. Laker X Commanders, 2 different leagues, full PPR. Godwin or Thielen, Waddle. Okay, there's 2 ors in this question. You just are starting off strong here. Godwin or Thielen and Waddle or Debo. Half-point PPR. Have a good night, boys.
No,
I think
he doesn't
Godwin
care
or
about
Thielen, Waddle or Debo. 2 different leagues, full PPR. Godwin or Thielen, full stop.
Waddle or
Debo. Also stop, but that's a half.
It's got to be a start sit question, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
God, I hope so.
So full PPR, I'm playing Thielen over Godwin. Having no idea who they're playing yet at this point. Have PPR, man, I might play Debo over Waddle right now. I get that Jacksonville was either just so bad or just not all there. But like every phase of the game, San Francisco rolled them.
Yeah.
And Debo did really, really well. So especially when Waddle, you're hoping for 7-8 catches or a touchdown. Like Debo will just be all over the place. So I think Debo might be the right answer. Because Waddle is not doing what I hoped he would this season. But I don't think there's an answer between Waddle or Debo, but I think Debo might be better.
It's interesting. Waddle's the highest projected player. He's a wide receiver 14 according to my initial predictions. Then it's Adam Thielen, then Debo, then Chris Godwin. So that's my start sit order as well, I guess. Okay. Waddle over Debo feels really awkward at this point, man.
I mean, like,
especially since San Francisco is going up against Tampa Bay this week in a higher projected game, better matchup too.
I mean, you gotta hope Achane coming back like pushes the Miami offense back to putting up 50 points a game. Yeah, like that's the rough part. Like they're only putting up 21 points and they're giving it to him. Like they want Tyreek to break every record ever. It's like how San Francisco kept McCaffrey out with 3 minutes left, even though they were up by 20 something, because they wanted his touchdown streak to keep going. Like I feel like that's what Miami's doing with Tyreek, which is hurting Waddle. Of course, that's complete and utter nonsense, I hope, but Waddle's not getting the volume that we hoped, and that's what it's making me sad.
This should be a week that they get the ball out quick, though. With the Raiders, like the Raiders' pass rush is legit.
Oh yeah,
so
Max Crosby's so good.
Yeah.
Achane's
meant to be starting this week. You're right. I didn't fully realize that. He's still listed as I.
He had partially practiced today. So
technically
he's activated.
Wheels up.
Yeah, and if he's playing, you're starting him, and if he's starting, he's awesome. And if he's awesome, that offense is awesome. If that offense is awesome, Waddle is awesome. See, like I love the commutative property right now.
There you go. Good players help good players. Something like that. So I'm resetting all my starting lineups where I have the Achane because I did not have him in. So you're just going to have to give me a minute here. Potential trade. Get Lamar, give Logan Thomas, Baker, Najee, Nico, Ty
Yes.
Yes. Get Lamar.
Here is
a bag of stuff.
Yeah, and the only thing I even really care about in any of that is Nico Collins. And that's
honestly Najee.
Yeah.
Is the one.
Najee's been doing better than I thought he was recently, even though he was just quote unquote demoted.
That's the thing. For the first time in his career, he shouldn't be because he doesn't have top 12 volume. But the last 2 weeks, he's been in the top 12. Yeah, but I mean, from a dynasty perspective, I think I like Najee more next year than I like Nico or anything else in that trade. Well, I like Lamar best.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm just burned from saying I'll like Najee next year because I thought I said that before this season. And it did not work out.
I like him next year. There's time. Plenty of time. James Conner or Derrick Henry? There's my start sit decision. That's that. Yeah, get Lamar. Always get Lamar. If trade would go through, a team would be Trevor Lawrence. You're just showing off. I can feel it. Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Minshew, Breece Hall, Brian. Could be any kind of Robinson there. Brian Robinson, Bijan Robinson.
Well, no, he put the junior in there. It is not Bijan Robinson Jr. It is Brian Robinson Jr.
Could be. You don't know his life. Amon Ra, Puka Terry, Deontay Osborne, Pop. Who's Pop? Pop on tax.
Douglas, Demario Douglas. Pop.
Hawkinson and Hudson. I still say you have a little work to do downfield and some of your wide receivers here, but it's solid for sure.
But the answer is still go get Lamar. That price is
it doesn't really. Yeah. Lamar could be the only thing you have on your team, and I'd still say, do that trade. Bo Pons, Superflex, PPR, half point. It's PPR 0.5 for tight end, so it's tight end premium. Right. Start 10. I am third at 8-2. Congrats. 18 points behind second, also 8-2. Fourth place, 6-4.
Yeah, well, I have that like that. Oh no, fourth place is 6. I have a couple of leagues where, like, the top 6 or 7 teams all have winning records.
Yeah. My leagues tend to be there's a hot 3 and everyone else is tanking, or like there's one good team and everyone else is 5-4 or whatever, 5-5, 6-4. And that tends to be my leagues right now.
I got absolutely spanked in Trade Addicts 11 this week.
Me too.
But I have the highest total team points, and I did by like 200 before this past week, and now I have it by like 10. Like I got more than doubled this past week.
I have the second lowest points. Stupid Eric Flynn tanking better than I am.
I got hit by bye weeks pretty bad last week, and my opponents got hit pretty bad with bye weeks this week. So I was actually feeling pretty good this week. I was like 30 points higher than everyone else. Yeah,
there are 5 teams in that league that are 8-2 or better.
Yeah, see, right? That's crazy. See, this is why I love actually looking at teams and not just setting lineups. I knew I was tanking in TA 11, and I know I have Will Levis, Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield as my quarterbacks. I'm like, oh, I need Caleb. But I pull up my team and I look at my taxi squad. I have CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Dalton Kincaid, and Sam Laporta on my taxi squad. That seems to be really good with Marvin Harrison Jr.
If you would start your players, you'd be doing really well. They're talking about the trade, so I can move on. Yeah. No, it doesn't.
No, never worry about the. Look, it's funny. I did a trade the other week with the person I was playing that week, and I happened to lose. And it's more of a joke that you don't trade with people you're playing because it's going to screw you over. But in the end, all you do is care if it makes your team better.
Yeah.
So, like, if you play the guy in a couple of weeks, who cares? And no, Marvin Mims does not suck. They just don't want to put him on the field.
But
and I don't know why.
I mean, that's on the field. He's running routes. I think the question is kind of an aside. Good or bad isn't the question for you at this point. You're a fantasy player, damn it. You're playing the risk management game. And so his value hasn't gone up, and it certainly hasn't gone down because he's on the field and, not disappointing. And so, trade for the same value if you could get it, which you can't, or just hold and wait and see it out. We've got plenty of players showing that develop a little later, do a little bit more down the end stretch or in the second season. We just know that Downs Tank Dell range of outcomes isn't in the cards for Marvin Mims, but it could easily show some promise. So that's my answer. It's like, I don't care. There's not been anything to say he sucks or gets better. So he's just, he's fine. Hold him. Hope something happens. Carry on, Zach. Actually explain the question.
Well, not like Marvin Mims is kind of what Marvin Mims is and has been. My conclusion to my Marvin Mims write-up, and I liked Marvin Mims. I think he's a good player, but my conclusion was the field stretcher profile is generally more valuable to NFL teams than to your fantasy teams. However, Mims can potentially grow into an intriguing flex play with week-to-week big game potential. The ability to break off chunk plays and long scoring strikes may be worth it. Like that's literally what Mims does. It's what he did in college. He averaged, it was like 20 something yards a reception. I think it was like 21 and a half. I'd have to go look. But it was somewhere around there and maybe like 17 and a half for his career. So like this is what Marvin Mims is. Mm-hmm. We're just hoping he gets a little bit more for looks. So all of a sudden he's Deshaun Jackson instead of, pick your poison field stretcher.
I was just so happy.
I think
when
my I would put it like Deshaun Jackson is out of his range of outcomes, but one of the many Deshaun Jackson lights, he could easily still be that guy at some point.
Deshaun Jackson is pretty much out of everyone's range of outcomes. I don't know if has there been anyone close since
A
Deshaun
field
Jackson?
stretcher with volume? No. That's it.
Like,
It's pretty much just Deshaun Jackson.
Like the closest we have is Tyreek Hill, and that's not the same.
It's not the same thing. But yeah, I guess that would be the closest, pairing of those things. Sorry, my alarm's going off. Yeah. So Marvin is fine. You just hold him at this point. Anyone Quentin Johnson had some signs of life this week. That make anyone excited, interesting, feel anything move, pants stay on? What?
I mean, they were unbuckled, the
They
belt was
unbuckled a
loosened,
little
the
bit,
belt,
but-
yeah, like they weren't down or anything, but like this was really best case scenario for Quentin Johnston, right? Like we love it when rookie wide receivers hit right away, but usually it's second half of the season, and especially with a player that was rougher coming in. We were hoping at the beginning if Quentin Johnston hit, it would be Mims like I always said, like when I was talking about rookie drafts, like I want the deep guy for Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And that's what he would be. He can be more. He should be more. I think he was drafted that early to be more, but I don't think it was right away. Like it would be silly to think someone that pulled a rough prospect will just be good right away.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't evaluating him as a rough. I don't know about such things. For me, he's just on the pile of, he could still be, like I was just saying about Mims, there's plenty of positive, players on other players. But I think if I could get out anything close to what I got in, if I'm rostering Quentin Johnson, I'd be pretty happy to. Like, latter half of the season is one thing, but most do more by week 10 or whatever. There's always going to be players you make excuses for. I don't think you panic sell Quentin Johnson for a second any more than I would panic sell JSN, because we make our excuses for the ones we like more anyway. But it is a more concerning range of outcomes. So if the positivity, and again, it was mostly held up by a touchdown, but that's the good things about rookies. You can mostly wave that away. If they do good, they get more. And they're the one group of players who can have that one efficient game and then immediately get more volume or be expected to get more volume moving forward. So that's actually not so bad for him that it was just mostly a touchdown. But yeah, mostly he's on my get out of list. But it's good to see. I'm rooting for the fella. Speaking of which, analytics really letting me down this year on JSN and Quentin Johnson and Mims. And still making excuses for JSN, but I feel you. But I also feel like everyone did. If we all got it wrong, then who got it wrong, really? And like I say, still making excuses. The one I'm disappointed, I guess, maybe is Flowers. When I look at my ranks over and over again, he's not badly ranked, but he clearly didn't stand out to me. And looking over my notes for him, like I was really trying to find a problem with Zay Flowers. He didn't stand out for me at all. And he's been the guy who's done well, who really didn't stand out to me this year. I mean, missing on a player you think is going to be better, it happens to everyone. And when it's literally the wide receiver one in pretty much everyone's ranks, I feel like if we all saw something good, and there's still time. Zay Flowers is the one that bugs me this year, to be honest, of all my ranks. Like, I'm not beating myself over a barrel with it, but that's the one that stands out to me.
It definitely bugged me during draft season when I would put Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers in the same, and you were like, and bring up Josh Downs, who's also been great. So I can't fault you for that. Yeah.
I'm not sad that I like Downs as much or even better. I'm sad that Flowers didn't separate from Quentin Johnson, if you know what I mean. But again, that could just be the results only 10 weeks in. To Russ's point, if you're looking for an archetype, it's Mike Williams, who's on the exact same team. Like he did something like what Quentin Johnson's doing in terms of development. I would also say Mike Williams came in having had a surgery after his the second last season in college, where they thought he wasn't going to be able to walk again. So I don't know rough around the edges really fully describes why Quentin Johnson's been struggling as much as Mike Williams, but still. Send Antonio Richardson, I think. Rashi Rice. Anthony Richardson? Yeah, that's the name.
Quarterback? Colts. You've heard of him?
I've already forgotten him. He doesn't matter anymore, you know. Rashi Rice, the 111 for the 102 A chain and the 202. Yes. I'd rather have the 102 and A chain, sure. If I'm reading,
I guess
right?
that's fine.
Yeah.
I think again, I think there are going to be at least 2 quarterbacks in this class with Williams in May. So yeah, if you know it's the 102, which you can't know yet, Genji, but I mean, I guess some
I'll
leagues
even
you can
slide the 3 in there and add Harrison to that. Like, I want to believe that Richardson's value is going to stay strong after all of this, but like, I think his value might dip until we hit that dead of the non-point scoring season where all we have are dreams. Remember those first 5 games? Richardson started to look really good, right?
That's the thing.
But then he looked so good. Like, by default,
I swear,
probably a top 10 quarterback.
I swear there's a type of, not fanboy, because I'm not trying to be derogatory, but people who like certain types of things have different types of value arc. So the guys who were convinced of the upside of Trey Lance and the upside of Anthony Richardson, they will argue about those 5 games for a little while, but it seems they fade real quick. Their memories are shorter almost, and I'm probably just stereotyping in a bad way here. But like, it feels like the same thing with Lance. Like, for a little while, the fact that the few games we'd seen him play, he was scoring a lot of points, held his value really well, and then it just tanked. And I feel like the same thing's true for Richardson. Like, I still don't think we know anymore about whether he can or will hit his upside. So I remain out. But it's still there, but I think the market will fade on it. It's like, I haven't seen it recently. I don't care.
In November ADP, he is QB7.
Yeah,
I don't think that holds, does it?
Well, but it may not hold, but it's gonna come right back because he's not losing his starting job. He's not losing his starting job.
The only thing that'll push Richardson down for reals. Well, first of all, Stroud is QB10 still somehow. I think Stroud, if he finishes the season strong, will push up over him. If like the Dolphins go back to going nuts and Tua's putting up mid to high 20 points every game, he can push up above him. And then Kyler could do it. Maybe Justin Fields for a couple of people. And then Caleb. But like, still, we're talking QB 10-ish.
Yeah.
And in a super flex QB10, you're probably looking at the middle of second round. Wide receiver 3, even if we're talking Marvin Harrison instead of Drake May, who will also be around that QB 10 to 13, wide receiver 3 or 4 is drafted in the end of the second round. Like, I think no matter how you splice this up, I think AR and the 102 are pretty even.
Probably. But again, to Peter's point, these 2 quarterbacks, by the eye test, look more NFL ready as throwers, which is the concern with Richardson. So, like, I don't disagree, Peter. I don't disagree with your assessment that you'd rather have A-Chain in the 102. Like, that's fine, and I probably would too. The 111 to the 202 is not much. I'd rather have A-Chain than Rice, even though I like Rice. And the 102 and Richardson are probably a push value-wise. And honestly, I'd probably rather have the quarterback I get at the 102 than Richardson. But Richardson, his upside, and that's what that's what his value is hanging on. His upside is huge. But I don't mind.
I think we're in such a great quarterback era. Like, all the quarterbacks around that, I can have those guys and just be immensely happy. And like, give me Tua. Give me Trevor Lawrence. Give me Kyler Murray for sure. Give me Dak Prescott. Fine. I'm good. I just feel pretty happy, pretty comfortable with my quarterback spot with top 5 upside on a week-to-week basis. Like, why? It's just not a good era for me to go, hey, that guy might be a boat when you've got all these yachts just swimming around. Like, please take me to the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know why I went there. I'm going on a journey. I'm just going sailing. You can wait at the harbor, hoping that the thing they're building behind the curtain is also a boat. It's just, there are just too many free boats sitting around. I'm going to take one of them boats. Flowsaurus. Hey guys, 1 point. It's a PPR league. Like what? Just say PPR. One PPR is just PPR. Sit 2 of these players: A-Chain, Rashid White, Puka Nakua Waddle, Nico, Lockett, Flowers. Thanks. I think I sit in Nico right now. I'm not sure.
I don't know what his health is. If Nico is completely healthy, I sit Lockett and Flowers.
Yeah. Listen to that Tank Dell grunt.
That's exactly what it is.
But the real question is, when Nico comes back, is it going
Tank
to be
Dell will still be
Brown? I don't think Tank has anything to do with that.
I still think Tank Dell's the best wide receiver to be wrong.
Well, he can be that, but CJ Stroud is a quarterback who can sustain multiple wide receivers.
Right.
Yeah. And Dalton Schultz.
Tank Dell is the same regardless if Nico plays or not. The question then becomes, if Nico comes in, does it go back to being the Nico Collins season, or is it Noah Brown season?
It was only Nico Collins season half the time when it was Nico Collins season. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm just saying, I think even playing, and I'm not projecting him to play right now, but he might be by the end of the week. I still think I'd sit Nico and probably, I don't know for the other one, Flowers or... I don't know between Zay Flowers and Lockett, to be honest.
Which is why I'll just sit both of them.
It's a little tighter. I think I'd sit Flowers and Nico. Just because Baltimore and Ravens, if it's not Mark Andrews, is it really a reception kind of seems to be the policy over there. Having said that, just to give everyone more fuel to hate me, Rashad Bateman's showing the signs of life as well. 3 straight weeks. I mentioned it in my column and on my podcast. I haven't been mentioning it here because, I can't stand all the laughter. But, his routes have been trending up. This week, he out-snapped most other wide receivers, and he was level with Mark Andrews in route share.
I only saw, I was watching Red Zone, and I saw him make 1 catch, and it was a very nice one.
Yes. I think it totaled like 25 yards on 4 targets. It was not spectacular, but it's positive. I'll take it.
That's all that matters.
Jazz Fresh. This is extremely poor value for Lamar.
That was
for the other side.
Yeah,
for the other. Yeah.
Jazz is with us. Go get Lamar for that. Yes.
Oh man, he's watching Full House. Let's go watch Full House.
Whatever happened? Oh, sorry.
The uncle on that show's got a memoir out right now.
Was that the other one?
His name?
Yeah,
Handsome fella.
Family. Yeah, that's not right.
TGIF,
I'm just
yeah, it's all the same. Everywhere you look.
That's awesome. AJ says he picked up Noah Brown and dropped Allen Robinson. Never a bad idea. Before he blew up, huge boost to my average team in a 16-man league. That actually matters.
That does matter. Yeah, good move.
I'd try to trade Noah Brown for something though, but yeah, congrats, man. That was an awesome pickup. I would not have even recommended it. Scribbles, I get the production hasn't been great this year, but groupthink on the Trevor Lawrence seems to have spiraled negatively. Yeah, that's probably a fair take. I don't think he's easy to trade for right now. Most people know to just wait with the quarterback, I think, but it might be a window to try and get him. Has almost no value at the moment.
Someone traded in Trade Addict 6, I want to say, Kirk Cousins and Kyler Murray for Trevor Lawrence.
Both?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That is value
that is value, but honestly, I'm sadly getting to the place where Trevor Lawrence might just be a better NFL quarterback than fantasy quarterback. He has the ability to run. That offense doesn't seem to gel all the time, so I don't know if it's a wait and see thing, but it makes me sad because I really, really like him and I want to be able to play him on my teams, and I have him on a bunch of my teams, but and it's a combination disappointment because it's and Calvin Ridley is just on crap since week 1, so it's extra sad. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
giving
I
up
got
by
you.
any means, but his value is lower. I think Trevor Lawrence probably played himself out of a first round startup pick in the Superflex startup.
I mean, he hasn't been
Um,
good for sure.
Well, that would be my question. Is he not good, or is there something wrong with the way they're playing? I mean, Ridley seems to be struggling to pay off in his volume, like more than I would have expected.
It almost like they didn't double cover him week 1, and then they started double covering him after that, and then people just don't care if Christian Kirk catches the ball. And maybe Ridley just isn't good enough to be double coverage anymore. I don't know. Like, that's what it seems like.
I mean, I have Lawrence above Bryce Young, above Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, and the rest. But everyone else, like if I could get everyone else, I would trade up into Trevor Lawrence, if you know what I mean. Like I have him as quarterback 10.
He's QB8 in November ADP. Still surprised how low Stroud is. Like, I really thought he'd be higher than 10.
Yeah, I know, right? Sometimes it's easy to be good at ranking. It's like my Kyler Murray rank now looks good all off season. Like sometimes you just see the window's just easy. You know, I think the average will definitely come up on Stroud by the off season, is what I'm saying.
For sure.
Yeah, I struggle with this kind of thing though. Someone asked me about this on a podcast last night, and they're like, "Do you buy into Brock Purdy or was it Sam Howell?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like them. I think they're good, but it's about I don't know if Trevor Lawrence's value has changed enough that I would say go buy. It's still more about the trade. I don't expect. Well, that trade Zach mentioned was absolutely great, but I don't expect a purely an easy value on him, if you know what I mean. Like he's 24 years old. He's still pretty good. He's still in the top 12. No one's like panicked. But yeah, sure. If you can get a good trade in Trevor Lawrence, it might be a good thing to try for.
Yeah, it's like what you always say. It's not a buy low window, but the buying window might be open now.
Yeah.
If you had a player, the person in your league who had Lawrence was always like, nope, not nope, nope, nope. Maybe send an offer and see. Maybe that nope is like a maybe now.
So where are we at? Would you send Bryce Young in a first for Trevor Lawrence? I think that would be a pretty good. I would like that.
We'll lead first.
That's the next guy I have in my ranks.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but you're also talking about a quarterback who's only 2 years younger, who's also playing poorly. So I might as well go with the guy I like more.
Yeah. All right. Trying to acquire a 34-year-old tight end. Should a top 8 pick get it done?
Scroll down a little bit.
Bob's trying to go get Kelsey.
Scroll down a little bit.
It's not about scrolling.
See, that's the problem. I went in and it's Bosch made like an eliminator dynasty league, and I went in and I was hoping to win, and I mean I made it this far. Like I just got eliminated this week, but I have no picks in 24, I have no picks in 24, and he's offering me decent money. It really is, but like I don't think I'll be able to do anything to super help my team with just that one pick, which is why I won't do it. I need your help on this one. So points this year don't matter anymore for me because I can't score anymore because I'm eliminated. So I have a guy who will swap Kelsey. He'll give me Olave for Kelsey, but only if I give him Stafford and Baker for Bryce Young. Now, again, points this season don't matter anymore for me, but I'm going to end up going into next season, again, with only one quarterback and no draft capital whatsoever.
Yeah, I think he's taken away what he's giving to you. He's taken away with the one trade what he's giving you with the other trade, which is essentially youthful potential.
Well, but not only that, taking away next year.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, honestly, like if this were like if I just had one other quarterback that was worthwhile, I would do it without thinking about it. But because I don't have faith that Baker or Stafford are going to be league winners, I don't care that much for that. So I'd be willing to do that. But the fact I'd be rolling with only Bryce Young next season it would be, and with the lack of activity there has been in that league, it would be too much work to get another quarterback. So
You don't think he can move Bryce Young next year when he hopefully has some good games?
But again, I'd have to move him for 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
I'd have to
And
pull.
so you're parting him out.
What I just did,
and you're probably not getting maybe you get a Stafford level. I don't know, but it's going to be gross pieces.
Yeah, but like really the way I look at it is like I'm not in a super rush because if this guy doesn't get eliminated this week, I have another week to trying to figure out a deal to do. Like my real goal anyways, the second I get Olave is to, move him to Bosch, who will hopefully overpay for him because he loves Olave, and see what I could do with that. But like that, yeah, that's what this is all about. Like Bob keeps sending me 24 first and his drop pick to get Kelsey. And I'm like, I get it, but it doesn't help me enough to make it worthwhile.
It's a good try, Bob.
Yeah. Not great, Bob.
I don't think it's bad, but meh.
Yeah, exactly. Like I might as well just go with Kelsey next year. Because it's not like
it's
Kelsey
where it's an eliminator and it's so much of a win now. You kind of have to have your mind more on a win now premise anyway. Yeah.
Ellie just asked me to come upstairs. I'll be back.
All right.
Good luck.
I think he froze the whole stream. That's what I think. Oh, there we go. Scribbles got turned down. A late second for Dobbs in a 1 QB. Have no backup. I'm screwed, right? People for some reason hoarding QBs. I mean, now you know that about your league, and there are other options.
Well, I assume you have a quarterback because you say you don't have a backup. If it's a 1 quarterback league, whatever.
You shouldn't worry about it that much. Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming it's his bye week and he needs a starter, but 1 week shouldn't make or break the difference.
Yeah. Go pick up.
But if you need to trade for someone, Taysom Hill. Who's starting Taysom Hill this week?
Taysom. They have a bye this week. Doesn't work. The quarterback for Cleveland, who is his name is escaping me, but the rookie that's a hyphenate.
I don't know. I have Watson starting for them this week. I was actually thinking of Tommy DeVito, but
Watson is having surgery, so it's not going to be him.
All right. Tommy DeVito. There you go. New York Giants. Worth much less than a second. No? I actually don't know who the other guy is for Cleveland.
I will tell you in scant moments.
I updated my projection.
Dorian Thompson Robinson. I knew it was DTR, but I couldn't remember.
Oh, his first God. Name. Ooh, that was not good the first time he played.
Oh, no, it's going to be ugly, but at least you'll have he's probably on your waiver wire. And if not, then whatever. I wouldn't trade for him, but
Aiden O'Connell, Payson Bagnet, Zach Wilson. That's the last option, to be clear. Try everyone else first, but yeah. Otherwise, just go a little higher. I mean, Sam Howell, Brock Purdy. It depends who the teams on the bottom of your league have. That's who I'd go looking for.
Yep.
In an auction league where I have no other picks, no. Okay, we're back to Russ. What would Tank Dell's value be? 24? No, he was a second round pick in his rookie draft for me. Now he's easily a mid first. Yeah, he's been overshadowed. No, he has not been overshadowed by Noah Brown. And missed a few weeks with injury. I think he missed 1 week with injury, followed by a bye week, and then they had a tough matchup, and so it feels like there were more missed weeks than there were. Yeah, if this is where you're at in Tank Dell, all I can say is raise it. Like, you don't have to catch up with me, but if you're valuing Tank Dell in Dynasty, rise your value because you can. And you can always get out because you don't like him as much as me, clearly. But you should be getting like a hell of a lot more for Tank Dell in Dynasty at this point. Yeah, he's like outside of, I think he's third right now as a rookie. You've got obviously Zay Flowers, obviously Puka Nakua, and then I think Tank Dell comes in. I think he let Josh Downs in at his points per game after last week as well. Like, do not undervalue. You cannot like a player, sure. That's your thing, but don't drastically terribly undervalue Tank Dell just for the sake of it. It's Wednesday again. It sure is, Matt B. Thank you. Scribbles, do you like Ty Chandler? Nothing, Ty Chandler. Sorry.
I mean, like, if whatever he's playing, he's a running back.
He's an NFL player. He does play in the NFL. AJ, Watson's injury sucks as a Browns fan. How does it impact his value in Dynasty? Watson's value is in a difficult place anyway. I was talking about this on that podcast last night. I can't think of a scenario in Dynasty where, game scripting it out, it isn't a better idea to trade Watson away. Like, even if he gets back, like him getting back to what we thought he was for a minute during this early part of his career, that difference-making top 5 quarterback, has got to be the least likely outcome from this point forward. And where he's valued in a tier of quarterbacks who are like Dak Prescott, all the quarterbacks we were just talking about, Lawrence, you could easily see yourself getting into that tier with a Watson trade. Like, there are so few outcomes where it's not a better idea to trade him away than keep him. No matter what your team looks like right now, building or contending. So yeah, I don't see a scenario where it's better to keep Watson. So that's my Dynasty outlook for him. In terms of his career, I don't know. I'm honestly just human. As a human, I hope he gets healthy, gets back to playing, can have the type of career he wants, I guess. But I'm not a big personal fan of his. So Zach, do you have any more insight on that one?
Yeah, like already before the injury, he was QB 15.
Yeah.
So that's going to plummet because we're in point scoring season and he's not scoring points. We've also seen him be not great. Like it's going to, there is going to be a point where Deshaun Watson is a buy.
Yeah.
It's not.
If he gets into the Stafford value range, it'd be interesting, right? Because you could see him being a lot better than that for a season. Yeah.
But like in terms of, but you're buying him for points. You're not buying him because you're going to trade him again, because I don't see his value coming back to where it is now. You're going to add at least 2 quarterbacks in this draft that are going to be higher than he is in the rankings. Probably another one. Sam Howell may bump him because even though Peter doesn't want to admit it, Sam Howell is like the QB 5 right now overall. And we had this last week. You have a very short memory. Okay.
Long memory.
Yeah.
It's QB 17 in Dynasty. And points per game, QB 7, I think.
I don't know. He's third overall.
His league is a 16-man league. I mean, in a deeper league, Watson has a little more value because the quarterback position is a little more longer-lived in general. But yeah, good luck, man. Genji, Waddle has been hurt and in and out of games. Weird year so far. Buy low. Yeah, I would agree with the last part there. In that, again, it just pays to have that longer memory. We know what his range of outcomes is. We know he's a top 12 player. He's been playing as a 2 behind someone like Hill. So I'm not concerned. I'm in that not concerned bucket. And anytime someone wants to get rid of him because his points aren't there, and I'm a building team, it seems like a perfect buy. I traded Najee and it wasn't great. Yeah, that's the thing, though. I've also enjoyed that about Najee. Like, whenever I need a running back on a winning team, Najee Harris is this early draft capital, all the volume guy who isn't top 12 every week, but can do that on a weekly basis. But this season, it's been different. The volume hasn't quite been there because the team is getting to the red zone so unoften, so little is what I'm trying to say, that his volume can't be actually top 12 because Kenny Pickett sucks that bad. They're just not getting to the red zone. He's got a huge share of their red zone offense. They just don't get to the red zone. And so he can't really pay off the way his volume usually does. But the last 2 weeks, both he and last week Warren as well, somehow managed to do it. So I think we're in trade away windows for anyone who happens to have him on their roster. But Najee's always a solid buy, normally. For me, for a team that normally doesn't have a lot of running backs, Najee is pretty easy to work. It's like Aaron Jones. Always a little undervalued, in my opinion. What are some running backs to buy down the stretch? Okay. I have a bunch of seconds and no first. So looking in that kind of range for value, I guess we should have generic lists, but we don't. It's more about what the teams in your league who would be in a situation where they would want second round picks have. And so James Conner comes off the top of my head as came back last week. But you've also got Singletary or Damian Pierce, one way or the other. Never more than a single second for either of them. But it depends who's on their roster. Running backs are always a this year proposition for me. Outside of that, the running backs I think about more broadly as buys. It's Brees Hall, it's Bijan Robinson, I guess Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'd wait because his volume's going to drop now. Montgomery's back and he's going to get healthy again and take a larger share of the rushing attempts next week. So maybe not him, but there's very few running backs that I would consider broadly a buy. I mean, Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara are always on that list, but depends where they're at in your league. If they're on competitive teams, you're not going to get them.
Also assume that we're looking at points like down the just the way this question is phrased is down the stretch. So running backs that potentially could be acquired for a second or 2 seconds, maybe Pacheco is in that range. Pacheco's one of those weird like Rorschach tests where like some people see him and they think he's beautiful and other people think, I'm not willing to give a second for him, and the value is probably somewhere the reality is somewhere in the middle. I personally would offer a second for Gus Edwards if he's not on like one of the top 3 teams in your league, because Gus Edwards has been consistently scoring. So it's that type of the guys who it's a little bit ugly. You're not like super excited about it, but I mean, even Rico Dowdle is and you may not even have to pay a second to go get him.
I would also say Jerome Ford took over the Cleveland backfield last week, like more than he has been. The last 2 weeks, he's been the guy, and he's probably worth a second. Javonte Williams has been in that buy window this offseason, but last week it finally paid off, so I'm not sure you'll be able to, like I was going to say, maybe throw a first at the Javonte Williams owner. But depending on how competitive they are, they might not be interested. Or a couple of seconds. That would be great, actually, if they would be willing to do that. But I don't think after last week it's possible. So there are a bunch of guys that you're just looking for those points. Don't go into Pittsburgh. I mean, Najee would normally be a good answer, but I don't think so. That's true this year. Aaron Jones, Rashad White, but he's been inside the top 12 so much, I'm not sure you're getting him for a couple of seconds. Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, because again, like I said, he's working back into that workload. I think his range of outcomes is going to increase this week, so he might be a guy to throw a second at. But they're of a theme,
The other player that you're not going to be able to get for 2 seconds, but you might be able to add something like a little bit to the 2 seconds because people still haven't. We haven't really grasped what's going on with Javonte Williams yet, but he is like full back.
I thought I said him. Sorry. Yeah, that's a guy that I think. I'm mentioning in my column most of this offseason, but last week he went off for like 20 points, so I'm not quite sure people are willing to, but that would be the ideal. Like then you're getting your cake and eat it too, because he's a longer term younger guy with draft capital, now healthy, scoring points. If you could get him for a first and a second, full win on a competitive roster. And just to mention it, Devin Achane hasn't played again. Maybe the person in your league, having not had him for 4 weeks, is at the bottom of the league and is more interested in draft picks now and thinks, because it is true, those first 4 games, he's not going to score 40, 50 points every week. They were touchdown infused and is maybe a little unsure about his value this offseason because maybe he comes back and doesn't do quite that and his value drops. I mean, it's worth sending a trade in A-Chain before he plays again, just in case. But you don't send no second. You're going to have to send a significant trade. Maybe just send one on him to be sure. But I think Williams is the next one down. He's been in a window. He might now be out of it. Outside of that, there's a bunch of guys like Zach mentioned. James Conner, Jerome Ford. I think even Brian Robinson or throw seconds at all these guys.
What about
See who
Algier?
does-
I know he's not scoring like he started off, but like he's again a break glass. Like if and
Singletary.
we don't wish injury, but like what?
Devin Singletary is the other one.
Same idea. Yep.
Yeah, I guess. Flosaurus, in a 12-team Superflex 1-point PPR, start 10. Try to sell Waddle and Flowers. Why? Oh, for Amon Ra. 27 was interested but couldn't do it. Would you try to add more? Feels wrong. Too much.
I'd probably
if you're
add
a
a
competitive
second and
guy
be happy
this year, yeah, then it's worth it, if you know what I mean. Because you're getting Amon-Ra and Waddle should really be in the same tier, but I'd have Amon-Ra towards the top of it and Waddle only a smidge below, just a smidge below. I think Flowers could work his way into that tier, but he's not there yet. So for a competitive roster, it's really worth it to roll those two good things into one great thing right now. Adding a second, like Zach said, I mean, that's essentially adding nothing from your perspective. It's just like a little sweetener. Like, it's good. Come on. And I think that might be enough to tip him over the edge. Because honestly, if I'm the Waddle guy getting Waddle and Flowers and I'm building, I think that's a pretty good trade the other way too. So I wouldn't add much more. But it's okay to add some cheese, as it were. Add a little, okay, I know this is difficult. Waddle's awesome. You like having two things that are good instead of one thing that is great. I get it. So yeah, you can add a sweetener there, like a second, this year second, because you have more control over what level of pick that is. Whereas if you trade it 2 years out, that might actually turn out to be worth more in the long run. So yeah, but no more. Like, that's more than good enough. Yeah. Pop disrespect, still a mist, I see. Smack my head. Yes, Genji. Who? Just fresh. 12 team Superflex start 10.
I hate to admit this, but he has scored more points this season than Rondell Moore. Yeah. DeMario
Don't
Douglas.
make me kick you off. I don't want to sit here by myself. Jeez. Just fresh. 12 team Superflex start 10. Bryce Young, non-contender. That's the right situation to be interested in. For Watson and a second. Why is the contender interested in Watson at this point? But I want the Bryce Young side.
No, non-contender. Bryce Young is non-contender.
Yeah.
So the contender theoretically would be interested in getting Young.
Oh. No. I think I want the Bryce Young side in either direction.
Yeah, I think so, but you're also betting that he's good. Like, yes, I am with you. I think Jazz. I'm on the Bryce Young side, but not like gung ho about it.
I'm not excited about it, but I'll take that youth and maybe hope there's a bit of a bigger window for him to have good games than Watson. Yeah.
Yep.
Awkward trade.
I do think Bryce Young is good, but he hasn't been good, so it's harder for me to think that he is.
Hasn't been good. I think that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
I think he was good in college for sure. Bryce Young, yeah, I'm 5-5, missed playoffs. Currently in 16-man. All playoff teams have winning records. It's tough out here. But you're not alone, AJ. That's the important thing. We all suck in at least half of our leagues, at least. So you're not losing by yourself, man. I still argue with John Bosch. Like, if I can't have fun losing, then I think I'd stop playing. Because there is so much losing to be done in Dynasty. I've been trying to move Waddle in a 1 QB league before week 1. He's still on my team. Can't move him. Not in my league. No, I don't know what to tell you. Like, just be happy having Waddle. Find a way of letting Waddle into your heart, Jazz Fresh. That's what you need to do. Like, open up, sit down, have a good conversation, like a top 12 wide receiver. Bon Chris, people actually look at who they are playing against.
Only in the Scott Fish Bowl.
There are rumors of that kind of behavior. Stephen White, third place team, second in points. Gardner at QB2 and Superflex. Do I sell Richardson for Howe plus? I would rather have Howe plus. That's where I'm at.
Peter hates Richardson, but I don't mind that, especially depending on what the plus is. You ought to be able to
It depends on.
but you ought to be able to get a reasonably substantial plus based on the thinking about Richardson.
And yeah, just how's QB 17? It's not like in Dynasty ADP. So you should get, what does the plus need to be? Bare minimum for you to say yes. I would say a mid 24 first. And that.
Yeah.
Does it seem fair? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Henderson or Keontae Mitchell? This week or in general?
Probably Mitchell.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way I'm going. Why not?
I don't have a spreadsheet. I don't but
Neither's probably the better. Fans yell at Mims, 0 catches. Mims smiled and said he'd don't throw it to me anyways. Oh, I mean, I'm rooting for Mims more than Russell Wilson. Well, sadly, Bob, I have that decision. I have Downs and Addison in my 12 man. That's awesome. Should I trade Hopkins after his next boom game and try to sell high? It's all about what the trade is. In general, selling an older player can always be a good move, but typically as they get older, they get less valuable and people won't give you anything for them. So I might end up keeping Hopkins because, he's still freaking Hopkins. I think if you are interested in selling Hopkins, you should have been interested all of this season. If the age is a concern for where your roster construction's at, like he's had plenty of good games this year a competitive team could have taken advantage of. Mostly when a player gets that old, I rarely see a trade I'm willing to say yes to, but sure, if you get a good one, do it.
Yeah, like you're probably going to be able to get a second for Hopkins. And if that does it for you, yeah, well, that's the question is a second going to help you?
Yeah. Again, where you've got Downs and Addison, and as long as the rest of your roster is pretty decent, I'd rather keep Hopkins for next year. But if you're quote unquote building, like your team's towards the bottom 15% of dynasty teams, that's kind of the way I phrase it, then a second's probably worth more to you. It's got less risk. But outside of that, give me Hopkins. Smith or Johnson, Superflex, full PPR, tight end premium, and start 2 defenses. Well, the defenses are really the key here. The other key is which Smith, Jono Smith, Devontae Smith, Dave Smith, it's a tight end question, right? Who's Johnson as a tight end,
though? Saints. Juwan.
Oh, yeah, it's Jono then. Yeah, Jono.
It's the real tight end one in Atlanta, Bob.
It's fun to talk about Pitts around. Bob, let's face it. The great keep trade cut has Lord Stroud at QB4. I have him at QB4. Finally, keep trade cut does something right. That's what
I just like Genji Lord Stroud because I heard that in like Vader's voice. Lord Stroud. Like
it's got a ring to it.
I like it.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. No, I think I literally have him as QB4. Like I'm really trying to be aggressive on it.
Chance, as a Stroud parent.
Now that's the best one. No, I have him as QB6 because Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray exist. But other than that, yeah, I'm a Stroud parent. I have him at QB4. QB4 is a solid rank. I got Kyler and 101 in that league and Anthony Richardson. Well, trade Richardson. You clearly don't need him. Stroud him the 101 in another league. Nice.
That's a win.
John Stamos. Thank you. That's the name I was trying to remember. He's got a biography out at the moment.
I saw him drum for the Beach Boys at the first concert I ever went to.
No, he talked about that actually, touring with the Beach Boys and stuff. I heard him in an interview. I was like, oh, that's that handsome fella. And I like hearing about biographies and stuff. Anyway, Chris Cash, what's Sam Howell's worth in Superflex? Well, he's literally ranked in current Dynasty ADP, which was just updated as QB 17. So the answer is probably too low because he's got that job for at least another. I think Washington will be fools not to try and use his contract, his very cheap contract, to at least try and build the team up in other ways before they look for a replacement. Like, how much hay do we make about the fact that a quarterback on their rookie deal is so important to a team trying to build or trying to win? Like, they've got that space all of a sudden. And even if he turns out not to be the guy, which he's not, he's got some talent, so we could help him at least. Then I think this window will be really good for him to try and take advantage of. So at least he should start next year. But again, that's assuming some rationality, which we should never do. But I'm willing to wager on it at QB 17 and have him a little higher than that, you know? And what did I have him? What do I have him at? I was updating my ranks for that show. So I actually have him pretty to hand. Sam Howell, I have him as lower. I've got to raise my Sam Howell rank. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm part of the problem.
But this was, again, like last week when I suggested go trade for Howell or Dobbs, and you were like, no.
Well, that's the thing. I normally don't specifically go out to get, like I say, and if it depends on is my league mate too low, that's not the kind of. I look for Kyler Murray. He is rightly lower. Most people are rightly disappointed, and like so, I'm buying in my leagues.
Yeah,
I can say that with more confidence. But if I say buy Sam Howell and then you go trade 2 seconds and Deshaun Watson for him, I'm going to be like, fuck no, I didn't mean that.
Right.
I'm just more tentative with the buy label.
Well, but that was a specific go target, because to me that team last week was go find cheap points, and I think that those type of plays, Sam Howell's cheap points, and he's probably cheap points for the next season and a half at least. Although, again,
he is cheap. Yeah,
it's a dangerous proposition because of the sacks he takes, and because who knows if he can hold on to a starting job. But right now he's got it, and he's putting up fantasy points.
Do you think it's easier or harder to trade for Sam Howell or Brock Purdy right now?
I don't know. It's probably pretty close. It's probably harder to trade for Purdy because I think people are more apt to think Purdy's good.
Right.
So.
Sorry, I'm adjusting. All right. 12-team Superflex L to you too, buddy. Start 10 PPR 0.75 tight end premium contender. Send Jameson Williams. Yes, do it. And a 24-102. Well, that's heavy for CeeDee Lamb. Yeah. I mean, actually, the 102 and a Superflex for CeeDee Lamb should be more than enough. In fact, they're getting a really good asset for CeeDee Lamb there. Because that's at least a quarterback, and if it's not, it's a QB, it's a wide receiver one of the class. And if it's not, it's a running back one of the class. Like the 102 is probably a little too high. You probably need a later first back if I was going to send this. I don't mind the trade. CeeDee Lamb clearly is better, and there's a boat, not a maybe a boat, and all those great things for a contender. But that doesn't mean the 102 shouldn't be worth more than CeeDee Lamb by himself.
Yeah, and I think the 102 in 4 months or 5 months is worth more than CeeDee Lamb. Like right now, and again, I'm looking at Superflex ADP from October, so it's like the latest DLF ADP, where CeeDee Lamb, the wide receiver 5, is just ahead, like a spot ahead of Kyler Murray, who's the quarterback 11. The quarterback 12 in that is Brock Purdy. And May, who comes in at the 102, or Caleb Williams, depending on how that shakes out with the draft and everything, is going to be ahead of Brock Purdy coming into the league, which means that in 4 months, that 102 is more valuable than CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, it just straight up is. Like, to your point, I was offered Kyler Murray for the 102, and I hesitated. I still got the 102. That pick is just as tradable right now as it will be in 3 months, and it's probably more tradable in 3 months. So, that pick has got to be more valuable.
The question, though, and the non-vacuum is a contender looking for points, and CeeDee Lamb is points. Yeah.
And it's also, it might not be the 102. Let's just tip ourselves to that as well. There's still a little variance there, but I still think you need to. There should be something else on the CeeDee Lamb side here. They should be pretty happy if they value Jameson Williams, and if not, just take him out of the trade, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you should get a little extra back there. But that's me. I don't mind the trade if that's the only way it gets done. I guess do it.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. But Gus Edwards, I think we answered that.
Edwards.
Yep.
I'd take Edwards on that one.
Yeah. Edwards out-snapped, out-touched, even after his breakout game last week. Yeah. It's just Edwards. Sorry, it's just Gus the Bus. Strong, steady, exactly the type of running back that Baltimore like, to be fair. Are we really talking about Noah Brown? No, not much. It's just...
look, Riley Bymaster of Dynasty Trade Calculator fame in 2017, January 19th, 2017, Noah Brown, wide receiver 4 in the 2017 class. So he was only 6 years. He was only 6 years too early, but we're here.
There's a solid return rate there. Every 6 years, you get one really good game from the guy that Riley liked. It's pretty.
He had him ahead of D.D. Westbrook, so I feel like that's a win.
That's a win. No, it's true. Genji. No. DTR, yeah, that's the guy we were trying to remember.
Yep.
We're a little behind.
Yeah, it was Dorian. I couldn't remember Dorian, so I had the Thompson Robinson, and I was struggling. Sorry.
I think 14-man leagues are pretty strong. 16-man leagues, it starts to get a little desperate. 14 is just deep. It's nice. It's a nice level. I need a cheap buy. Who jumps off? All right. I do have this table, which literally is meant to bring that kind of shit up for me. Cheap buy. So we're talking about players who are valued outside the consensus top 200, right? Yes. Okay. The guy that I think's the biggest buy is, oh wow, this is a nasty list. Zach Moss, who literally just lost his job last week, kind of, but he might still have games in. And Justice Hill, Josh Reynolds, borderline startable in a 14 to 16 man league. Those are the ones that stick out to me the most. Everyone else, I'm pretty much even on. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for value, I'd probably say Marvin Mims as a deeper buy. Dorian Green. Could you just not? Bob.
No, he's thinking Dorial Green.
I think he's thinking totally Dorian Gray. That's what I think.
Dorian Gray, the painting.
Yeah. Enter the power of 4. 12 teams with flex. Give Love, yes. Rashad White, sure. And a 4th. Receive Puka and yes, do that. Get Puka Nacua. Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't need Love this year. No one does. The song was overrated. Love is not all we need. Superflex. Quentin Johnson on a late 24 first or Fields? I guess it's the quarterback, but the first is tempting,
but it's a late first. It's still Fields.
It's Fields. Yeah, it's a quarterback in a Superflex. I'm a Watson defender since I'm a Browns fan. Well, I am not gonna make life any harder for a Browns fan. That's fine. So I'm biased. The last game he played was his most positive game, right? And honestly, the team's got talent. It's had talent for a while if someone can access it.
Genji's response. The next.
Very unfeeling. Browns fans have suffered enough. Leave them alone, Genji. But my league mates would only offer a second or third. That's unfortunately the dynasty way. You just end up in your league. You're just holding. It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the thing we all talk about. Buy this guy, buy that guy, sell that guy, sell this guy. when you go to your league, like none of it's possible. Like, that's the reality of it. Most time, actually getting a trade or getting something done in a league is rarer than constantly looking for buyers and sells might make us think. And that's normal, is what I'm saying. Like the fact that you can't find anything to do. It's just very normal. Unfortunately, Dynasty, you got a bunch of smart, degenerate folks grinding a Dynasty league. We're a little hesitant to make decisions. Hey, from Manchester, England. Hey, Virgil, I know that place. Welcome in. And a Facebook comment, no less. I appreciate it. Had a strange dream last night where I thought Liberace was gay. I actually have no idea. I kind of assumed, though. Salvatore sold Rashad Bateman for Damian Pierce. Solid, at least if you were interested in points this year. Yeah, that didn't work out for me. Yeah, I stand by the value arc. But
shrug at both of them. Pierce is probably worth a second, and Bateman's probably worth like a late second. Like whatever.
To the right team. Yeah. At least Pierce was scoring points this year. That sounds like a solid idea. Chris Stanley, 16-team Superflex, earning the 102. Offered the 101 for Lamar. I think the 101 should be worth more. Mostly. My other QB is Watson. I'd rather trade Watson for less, but whatever. Trade deadline this week. I do hate trade deadlines. I'm with Russ on that one. Feels light, but draft picks can't get in. Yeah, that's exactly the thing. If you're building, you're trying to remove risk and just push your value as far as you can. Just get a little more, get a little more, get a little more. That's the whole point of building. So the draft pick can't get injured. It doesn't decrease in value ever. And so it's just got less risk. And that's the way to think about it.
And Chris, you've all of a sudden rebuilt your entire quarterback room this year in a 16-team Superflex. If you've got the 101 and the 102, all of a sudden you have two top 12 quarterbacks on your roster, value-wise, not necessarily production-wise, but value-wise to start the season next year.
Yeah. Lockett or Sutton going forward in Dynasty? In Dynasty, just give me Lockett. I think his range of outcomes is higher. I think he's a better player. Sutton has been underratedly good this year. But like that's a ceiling for Sutton, whereas Lockett, he doesn't have as long left, as it were, in his career, but we never really know the way injuries work out. Just Lockett over Sutton for me in general. I'm not paying just for more mediocre when I can have a smaller amount of something much better. That tends to be the way I play Dynasty. Sutton is 29th-ish, Lockett's 31st-ish. Yeah, they're in about the same range.
Oh, he's talking
that
age,
could
I think.
Maybe. Yeah, I think that's exactly the way I try to avoid thinking about age in Dynasty. Sutton's slightly younger and so slightly longer, but I'd much rather have a shorter expectation for something that actually makes a difference than a longer expectation of something that doesn't. And to be fair, that's hat tipping Sutton's having another one of his. This will be his second year where he was, he's having a pretty good, especially considering how disappointing Russell Wilson has been. He's having a pretty good year. I think I saw a highlight of Cortland Sutton making an excellent catch this week as well. It's not like he doesn't have talent. It's just we chase points. And he rarely does enough of those good plays with enough volume to have a significant difference. Whereas Lockett does that on the regular. I'd rather have Lockett. Scott G, my league mate wants his 25 first back. I know his feelings. He has 3 early 24 first, and I want one of those. In that 25 first and late 25 second, and Elijah Moore, a decent offer. Well, the 24 early first should be worth more than 25, even if they were both about the same range. So I think you do have to add. I think a second is the going rate. You add a second to a first a year out. Adding Elijah Moore is fine. I don't bulk at it.
That probably detracts it for me. Like honestly, like Elijah, like what? I'd rather have my roster spot than Elijah Moore.
To be fair, you can always drop him. Okay, just drop him if you want to, Zach. But yeah, I don't think Elijah Moore is enough to make me go, no. but it's an Elijah Moore heavy, technically, I guess, but it's fine. Yeah, I think that's a decent offer. Maybe even offering a lot more than he should expect. Waddle will win us this week. Will he? He'll have his good weeks. I think he's more of a long-term player. He's a next year play in Dynasty at this point. He's still going to be pretty good this year, don't get me wrong, but I don't expect it to suddenly be as good as it was last year. Keep Trade Cut has Howe QB13. That's a little sharper. I will say I haven't looked at Keep Trade Cut for a while, but looking at their Superflex ranks, they were ass. For the last 2 years, they have it at a strong disadvantage at the quarterback value. They have not been doing quarterback very well. And so far from the 2 ranks that you've given me, they seem to have gotten a bit sharper. Yeah. Would you trade Jordan Love and Tank Dell for Zay Flowers? In a Superflex, I'm guessing.
It would. First of all, I think it would have to be a 1 quarterback, right? Would you rather have Dell or Zay Flowers, Peter?
I think I rank Flowers higher than Dell, but it's pretty close at this point.
I was going to say, after you've seen what Dell has done, like, to me, like, I think I'd rather have Dell.
I think Flowers is still. I think his points per game is still a little higher, but it's a little even, and I don't really want to roster Jordan Love. And if it's a 1 QB league, I've got no incentive to make this trade. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It basically boils down to a same position trade and just bad taste. Howell is number 1 in passing yards. However, the top 2 wide receivers have under 1,000 yards. Starting and commander skill position is yeah. Jahan Dotson was due to stop being quite as good as he was the last few weeks. So, like, I actually called that one. He was out kicking his coverage. I think if there's a wide receiver on that team that's better than just pretty decent, it's Terry, and even he doesn't have that ultimate ceiling that we really like. That Waddle-like ceiling, you might say. Jazz Fresh. Mm-hmm. No, okay. The other top 5 throwers have skill players that you want to start. There seems to be... There's a conversation there that me, Zach, and Jacob had once about how influential the quarterback was on the wide receiver and the wide receiver on the quarterback. The simple fact is you can have a top 5 quarterback without a top 5 wide receiver and vice versa, but there is an interplay there.
Yeah.
Like I think Demaryius Thomas was going to be pretty good without Peyton Manning, but the two together was pretty amazing to see, that kind of thing. Hill, Waddle, Amon-Ra. Hill was good on 2 different teams with 2 different quarterbacks who both happened to be good. Waddle was good on the team before Hill got there. I've run the history on this, and there's pretty much no clear line, but I think the more you intermingle the idea that the quarterback and wide receivers are dependent, the less likely you are to be right. Assuming that the good quarterbacks have good receiving weapons is going to be wrong in the long run if you run with it as a heuristic, and vice versa. Like, they operate independently. There's clearly an effect there. But Devontae Adams wasn't made by Aaron Rodgers any more than Aaron Rodgers was made by Jordy Nelson. But they clearly helped each other out when they get on the same team. I think you have to take each case by case, but I see what you mean. Yeah. I have I hate the Pittsburgh offense. Like, we should start some kind of I hate this offense club. So disappointed. Marvin Cano made a trade today, guys. Oh, congrats, Marvin. Love to hear about it. In a second, I assume. Raymond just did this trade. 12-team, 2 QB, start 10 PPR. Sent Watson, London, and a 24 first, presumed mid, and a late second. Wait, I've read this wrong again. No? Watson, London, mid 24 first, and a mid to late second. Why did I get this one wrong?
Got Burrow. His next.
There we go. Okay. Burrow for Watson, London, and mid 24 first plus a second. I think you paid pretty heavy, but I'd rather have Burrow. Yeah. I don't mind that trade.
But you mentioned, Raymond, the Chase Burrow stack. I don't know. Stacks for me in Dynasty don't really register. Now, Chase
Not
Burrow,
if you're making weekly decisions, put it
Right.
that way. If you
But,
have to submit a lineup, doesn't matter.
but like Chase Burrow is a nice stack to have, not because it's a stack, but because they are good players.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point. Marvin, 14 teams, start 8. Superflex. Oh, Superflex. Okay, that makes sense. Traded Devontae Smith for the 106 to 108, a pick in that 106 to
106
range.
and 108. So two picks.
Okay. Projected the 106 and projected the 108. Okay, I see where it's going. 2 firsts for Smith in a 8-team league.
14-team league, start 8.
Start 8 was what I was thinking of. 14 teams, start 8. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
The 106, 108, like the problem with that to me is you're about 50-50 and you're hoping one of them becomes Devontae Smith. Like,
yeah, a younger Devontae Smith, but Smith is
Yeah.
pretty young.
I mean, it's not a bad. It's definitely not a bad trade, Marvin. But
it is a super flex league, which means the 6 and 8 are slightly better. Otherwise,
and the
because
14
the quarterbacks get stacked at the top, so you've got a better chance of getting a Smith. Yeah,
the 14 team also pushes quarterbacks to the top.
Also means
so.
The depth means a little bit more. So yeah, I don't mind it. It's tough to value Smith at 3 first, put it that way, and in a 14-team league, that means I think this is more than fair, especially for a building team that needs to throw more darts to get more. Yeah, it's good. Good job, Martin. We saw you. Is Kamara worth the 110 in a 14-man league? To me, if I'm a top 5 team and I'm trying to win, yes. Broadly, in general, I think running back value is tanked further than that, and Alvin Kamara is on that other side of the 29 age, and it was already lower than that in Dynasty in general. But I would do it to try and win, but I don't think that is his value, as it were, generically, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'd expect to be able to do it for less, but if you held my feet to the fire and that was the best move I could find, I'm going to try and win if I can win. Got a 25 fourth and $11 in fab for Zeke.
Yep.
At least you got to feel like you did something. There's not a lot for us building teams to do, so it's nice just to get a move done. I like it. No, actually, you got a really good value on Zeke.
Yeah.
Also in another league, got a 26 second. Really going out there for OBJ and a 26 third. Taking out the trash, but recycling.
Yeah. I like it. Reduce, reuse, OBJ.
Most leagues, they just get rejected because people don't want to think about it, I think. So you're in pretty active leagues, I'd say, if they're even considering them. Jay Cast, I'm in a 1 QB start 8 PPR league. My QBs are Fields, Minshew, with Anthony Richardson and Watson on IR. Would you go get a better backup before the trade deadline?
Not in a 1 quarter. Well, I mean, I guess, but
I would be trying to
quarterback.
No. Yeah. I will be trying to get a better, just outright starting quarterback because I like tearing up those onesie positions, even in a 1 QB league. But no, I'm not doing it just to have a better. No. In fact, you've got too many quarterbacks with some level of value, I would say, in a 1 QB. Like, that's too many. You need one good one. You don't need all this. But that's me. A lot depends on how you want to build and how you've built your roster. So. Can I start Deontay Johnson this week? I mean, you can. It's physically possible. Unless you're in one of those formats that stops you. I mean, he's startable. He's flex worthy. It's Pittsburgh, though, man. That's as positive as you can get with Pittsburgh. He's wide receiver 33 this week projected.
Peter, that's the 6-3 Pittsburgh Steelers.
The NFL makes no sense. You know that, right?
I do.
Yeah. Scotchy, from hearing you talk about Jordan Love, it sounds like there's no way in the world I should be trying to trade him right now rather hope he has better decent couple game stretch and then try it. I get what you mean. Here's the thing. Like, that's what I'm saying essentially about Bryce Young. But Jordan Love isn't that rookie quarterback who just got a lot of draft capital thrown at him. Jordan Love is a, fourth-year player that the team's waited around this long to see what he could do. Also, Jordan Love was nowhere near as good in college as Bryce Young was. So even if they were both rookies, I think Young would be the better prospect for that kind of a play. But broadly, in Dynasty, yes, if you can't get something good for a player, you hold and you hope for a window. But some of that comes down to your market. Like in a lot of my leagues, there's not a lot of activity. So waiting for windows makes almost no sense because even when, like Jonas Smith right now, I've got him on a losing team, but no one will trade because it's not a very active league. So what was the point in stashing him back when, you know? So you have to take that into account a little bit. But at some point, you are right, especially based on the way I was talking. You can always hedge that way in theory, but at some point you have to make a decision. With Bryce Young, I will lean towards he was pretty good in college, man. High drafted. I think there are better days ahead if I have to lean a direction. Jordan Love, opposite way. And I'd like confirmation bias being what it is, but I didn't think he could pay off, and then he didn't pay off, and I'm just further leaning into that. I would rather trade him now because I expect him to not have I expect him to be less likely to have a good stretch of games in the future, and therefore you're just losing upon losing, if you know what I mean. But again, that comes down to when the rubber meets the road, you have to make a call if you think Love can do that. I would say he can't, but I could easily be wrong because I don't know the future. But you do have to make a call that way. I'd rather bet that Young has that potential, whereas Love doesn't. That's Peter. When the rubber meets the road, that's where I'll go.
Peter, are you incredibly shocked that Jordan Love's touchdown percentage dropped from around 12% to around 3%?
Flabbergasted.
Yeah, I thought so. You look like you were shocked.
And Raymond, don't worry about it. You've heard me try and talk. You're doing a better job typing than I'm talking.
Obviously, Raymond does not follow you on Twitter.
That too, yeah. No apologies necessary. Appreciate you being here, man. Jazz Fresh. I mentioned those skill players because they are startable players. So, yeah. You don't want to start McLaurin Dotson. I don't mind starting McLaurin as that flex option. He has that in his range of outcomes most weeks. Dotson, I was a little surprised by. But those regression junior.
I mean, but McLaurin, it's just been a lack of touchdowns this year. He hasn't been.
That's the thing. His volume's there, but it's how did I say it in my column last week? I pointed out that like Jahan Dotson was worth twice as much as Romeo Doubs was in ADP and the value calculator, but like Romeo Doubs is significantly higher in points per game and overall position rank than Dotson. It's just because he's young and people were projecting way too much into these couple of week starts he's had. I don't like rooting against players, but sometimes it's pretty obvious. I have an offer in my inbox. I have a tanking team. I'm on the edge of my seat now, Nick. Sorry, I know it's too easy to hit that space bar. I know what happened, but I'll wait. Josh Dobbs and Brian Robinson for the 110. Yeah.
A win now team, you probably want
win
Dobbs
now
and
team.
Robinson.
Yeah, I think on it's a perfect example of how that's. But if you're trying to win and they help you win, even just this week, yes. Why not, man? Don't underrate the chance to win.
Yeah.
The 110 doesn't often work out to be as good as either of those things, to be honest. Start 3, A-Chain, Keontae, Henderson, Deontay, or Njoku. No premium. A-Chain, Deontay. Flip a coin, get a gelato after that.
Mitchell, just hope for a splash play.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Let me derail Henderson just a minute. Let me effort this.
I'm looking at David Njoku.
No, it's Mitchell.
13 this week.
It's Mitchell.
It's probably Mitchell. Yeah. It's Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Henderson, Keontae Mitchell, and DeMarcado, which is a fun name to say, to be honest. Enough to survive in a 14-team league. That's an okay running back core. it's not great.
No.
I start your wide receivers are a lot better with Chase. St. Brown, Hawkinson's obviously a good tight end for you. Herbert and Stafford. O'Donnell, whatever. I think Stafford starts again this week, right? So your quarterbacks are pretty good. I don't think you have a clear running back too, is your problem. In a 14-man team league, I can't imagine that's a worst running back core. It's a pretty solid team, but your running back room needs work, especially if you're not just thinking about this year. If you're thinking long term, that's a terrible running back room. But for this season, you might be able to hobble through, especially with your other positions being that strong. He has an offer. Nick's back. He had an offer in his inbox. 12-team start 10 Superflex PPR, half-point tight end premium. I have a top 4 pick, likely 2 to 4. The original owner wants it back. I know how he feels. He's offering me Richardson. Do I take it? No. For me, no, but it's fair.
For what pick though? Notable players on my team. It like a top 4 pick. Is it that you're talking a top 2 to 4 pick?
Yeah.
I'd probably re-roll it with a top 2 to 4.
Yeah, that's just on. Like if it was 5 or lower, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Then you're getting actually a really good deal. I think it's the right value, and it's rubber meets the road time. You have to decide if you want to be in or out on his potential, right. Which is awkward because we try and avoid those situations. We want to constantly hedge. It's Dynasty, but that value is good enough. You kind of have to make a decision. And for me, I'm out. I'll take the pick.
Yeah, I think so. You got at least 2 quarterbacks. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., so you got a 75% chance of feeling really good about things. And this is just from like now. There may be more. There may be a running back who emerges. There may be 2 or 3 more receivers that emerge. So like,
and the other thing, because I've had trades like this recently on building teams as well. The other thing I think, worst comes to worst, that pick isn't getting less valuable. If they're willing to do that trade now, they'll be willing to do it in a month or 2 if you change your mind. Like as a building team with the pick, you have relatively low pressure to make the trade. So they're not adding incentives for you. So like you can do it later. Say, I want to, write it out. See what happens in the draft process. Marvin Harrison Jr. decides to keep playing in college and like, nah, man. But that's kind of my deciding factor. If there's no impetus to make it right now, I'll keep waiting. That pick just gets more valuable. Am I tanking? Okay. Am I just taking a random third for any handcuff on my bench, Dowdle, Chandler? Yes, basically.
If you're not competitive.
Ideally, you can add a third to them and get a second. I mean, that's a generic Dynasty line, but most teams will be like, no, I want my second. But yeah, I actually like courting thirds and fourths because they only work at volume, but they're also this undervalued asset that no one cares about. So if you can just stack up a bunch of thirds, that works over time. Yeah.
So Genji, here's the really cool thing about having an extra third. Because if you come into the second round of your rookie draft and you make your second round pick, and then you look and there's another player sitting there, and you're like, this past year, you're like, man, I heard Derek Brown talk about Puka. I really want to slide back into the 208 and take Puka, but I just don't have the firepower. Oh, wait, I have my next year's second, and I have this third round pick that I picked up for Rico Dowdle. I'm going to offer a third and a second to get this second round pick to come in and make a specific pick of a player that I like. I love having that. I love being able to buy on, I call it buying on credit, but using your next year's second and a third, because people are like, oh, I get a second and a third for a second. That's a win. Even though it's not, it's a year out, and you kind of came in and tactically, specifically picked a player that you want. So yeah, if you're non-competitive, adding those thirds, why not? Gives you some flexibility.
I've actually made an inconsistently published podcast that I don't talk about a lot for Fed Russ actually on the DAT network called Dynasty Tactics, and that was my first one. Thirds and fourths are literally the scum of Dynasty. No one cares about them. No one values them. They're not worth anything. Yet people will always say, add this, add that. And so I said the tactic is to go out and actively try to acquire a bunch of them because of moves like that. And because once you rack up a bunch of these undervalued things, it gives you options. And Zach's example, that's a really good one. So, yeah. I've forgotten to make a third episode. I just remembered I do that podcast. Is Kyron just as good when he's back from IR? Just as good, probably. Those types of players tend to fall back into their role for the immediate season if he can get back this year. Long term, no. But the team did clearly want to use him in that role. If he's healthy enough to use it, he probably falls back into it, yes. Would be my guess. No love for Darrell Henderson.
The problem with the problem with Kyron Williams' injury is that it ended up being a high ankle sprain.
Yeah,
which is, I mean, we've seen. You saw it with
Cup,
you saw it with Kamara, you saw it with Saquon. Like those are hard to come back from, and they don't always look the same when they do to start.
Hence the asterisk when he's healthy.
Yeah.
If he gets back this year. Would you take any of the top 3 players next year over Richardson? All of them. I'd take I don't even know who they are this year yet, and I would take the top 4 or 5. Yes.
I mean, that's right now it's May, Williams, and Marvin Harrison Jr.
There you go.
Like right now.
Yeah.
And yes.
The shot on one of those. Yes, I would. Yeah. Yep. 12-team Superflex trade projected 104, 108, and 109 in 24 for Lawrence and Diggs on a contender.
Win.
Yes. Yeah. Clear win. Yeah. I was hum-haring, but if you're trying to win, Lawrence and Diggs can help you do that, and that adds just that little something to make it worth it. For me, and the way I play Dynasty, yeah.
And again, none of those are the top 3, so you're not necessarily giving up one of the quarterbacks or Harris. Like, yeah,
to use your process, that 4, the 104 has a 75% shot of being a Trevor Lawrence or a Diggs, and that's the best thing in the trade. A 75% shot of getting one of the things that you're getting. Like,
yeah,
I'm not fretting giving that away. Yeah.
Yep.
And the other 2 are like 25% shots of getting something like that.
Yeah.
Scotchy, I have an awful team. It's a 12-team Superflex 1.5 tight end premium. I have Justin Herbert, Watson, JJ, and Pitts, and literally nothing else. Yeah, happens. Am I wrong to keep JJ and Herbert rather than trade for picks? You're not wrong to do anything.
No.
It's your team, and in any given league, the right move might be different. You should consider trading them, though, because you're clearly building. JJ's value can't get higher. Also, it's not a great window. When he's scoring points, it will technically be a better window to trade him, to be fair. And it's the same with Herbert's value is a little muted right now, so I could see not doing that. Same with Pitts. But, I mean, you should always be willing to shop them, but none of them are in really good sell windows. Like if this was earlier in the season and everyone was seeing the points and being reminded that Justin Jefferson is everything we think he is, great time to try and shop him on a contender. Doesn't mean you're going to find a good trade, but it's a better time. You know what I mean? So you're not wrong, but if you get a good trade on any of them as a building team, you should be interested in it. Yeah. You're not in a position to say, I'll just hold because they're good. Reduce risk, increase value. Those are your only 2 goals when you're building. And players have more innate risk than a multitude of picks because injuries. Right. Unfortunately, Scotchy, thirds are gold. That's the thing, though. They're not. They're like the dust under people's nails, but they have the potential if you get enough of them.
What Scotchy did, though, to me is a lot better than making a 3rd-round pick. Trading a 3rd to go get a backup quarterback. I would much rather do that. I'd rather go trade them to get a player, or again, the way I manipulate them is trade them to get a higher pick within the framework of a draft. Like those are the ways I want to spend them. Like if you're just acquiring 3rd round picks to make 3rd round picks,
right? That's not ideal. That's what I mean. The only way you make 3rd round picks is if you get, literally all of them. Or at least you get 12 over a 3-year span. Then maybe it becomes a good odds bet to make those picks. But they still to your point, they offer you these opportunities to add to other trades, add little nuggets here, try and tear up. It's a value thing. You can do more. I mean, maybe it doesn't work out, but it gives you options. And on a building, for something that most Dynasty players don't think much about at all, considering everyone thinking about everything way too much, I find the 3rd force interesting for that reason. Yeah. But, it's a very small.
So we're using the term gold loosely. It's not like we're not investing in gold, but it's like a coin
gold
that
dust
represents an amount. Well, it's a coin that represents an amount of gold that America's already spent and minted 17 times what we. Oh, sorry.
No, we're getting what I have lost track of this metaphor. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Marvin, Deshaun Watson or Daniel Jones for the 110? Trade either for the one. I mean, in a super flex, I'd probably rather have the players, but it's in a building team, I'd probably rather have the pick, because
but it's a 14 team. So acquiring a quarterback in a 14 team, I'd rather acquire Watson than Daniel Jones.
I misunderstood the question. No, you're right. If you're going to trade for one as a respectable buy low, I think Watson's a better buy. Yeah. Daniel Jones' contract is so huge, though. He probably starts again next year. And we saw him be okay last year, which was a whole argument. But I made that mistake this year. I am disappointed in myself for believing Daniel Jones could be okay. Let's put it that way. So I'm out on that one. But Watson's fine. Everyone talks about acquiring thirds, then no one values them. When that's the point, though. You have to be the one to value them just a little bit, which is awkward because technically they're 10% shot of getting a player who even has one top 24 season at any position. They're not very valuable. But because of this, summarily, most people say that, but actually don't act that way. There's a window for you to try to act that way. If you know what I mean, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't think they actually have much value. But if they don't, you can try and take advantage of that.
The other cool thing, Nick, and this may not be the case in your league, but it could be something that you add to your league, is in a few of my dynasty leagues, and specifically my home league, which is commissioned by Kyle Lebrecht, we have an unlimited taxi squad for players that you draft. Not just rookies, but players that you specifically draft. So trading for draft picks, later draft picks, all of a sudden becomes a valuable proposition because now you can have 5 third-round picks that you put on your taxi squad for 2 years and figure out if any of them are any good, as opposed to having to have the roster space to roster them. So again, thirds in and of themselves, they're a bad bet. They're not really valuable. What you can do with thirds sometimes is valuable. And if you're in a league where you have that taxi squad where, again, ours is unlimited. So you could have, if you traded for all the picks in the draft, you could have all, whatever it is, 72 picks on your taxi squad if you were able to do that. So all of a sudden the later picks become a little more valuable because you can roster them for 2 years and you can kind of let them proof and see what they become. And again, also the way I use those later round picks is to tactically move within the framework of a draft to get the pick that I want specifically.
And to your point, Nick, the only reason I mentioned it and made that episode is because I literally never hear anyone valuing them. If in your circle everyone's saying acquire thirds, and trade thirds. Because my default when I look at my teams, if I have thirds and fourths, I consider myself to have nothing. I do not see them. I don't value them at all. But looking for those little extra edges in leagues that are competitive, in those leagues, when I mostly look at them, I don't find anyone valuing thirds and fourths at all. And if I can't find anything else to do, I found it sometimes useful to just be like, add a third to this trade. I'll give you this decent player worth a second for multiple thirds over the next 2 years, because no one cares, and they rightly shouldn't, about thirds. But if I do it actively and acquire a bunch of them, then all those little nothings add up to maybe options in a lot of different directions. But it's not something I'm actively trying to do on every team. And if in your world everyone values thirds, just trade them away. They are literally worthless individually most of the time. Like, I'm not saying this is something you should actively do all the time, but it is an edge you can look for, I think. A tactic you can try and employ when nothing else is available. You're not buying low, Marvin.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like the 110 is not like, you don't really want to go get Watson but I would rather have Watson in a 14-team Superflex league than the 110.
Chef, a contender team with Barkley as a flex, and I want to move him for a wide receiver. Who should I target? Appreciate you guys. It's a difficult question without being able to see rosters. Like, you should go look at the bottom half of your league, see who's got a pretty decent wide receiver, and they're not interested in them right now because they don't need those points. But you're also trading a running back, so those teams probably are less interested in that running back, which is awkward. Barkley's a really good flex, though, so why do you want to trade him into a wide receiver? Like, I have questions. I don't know what's going on. As for his value, like, what should he be valued as? Like, I have Barkley pretty high. Like, Barkley should be respected in Dynasty. He's a running back, sure, but he's worth more to me than the majority of wide receivers. There's very few wide receivers that hold over him. So I'm not preferring wide receivers just because of that positional preference some of us have when we play Dynasty. Let's see. I have Barkley. That's lower than I would have thought. 26th overall. The wide receivers I have above him, like, he's right next to Tyreek Hill, because you've got that 3-year age difference, but the positional difference makes up for that for me. Outside of that, it's Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle. Like, I don't value any other wide receivers outside of the ones above Barkley. I guess you could try Jordan Addison, because in Dynasty, he should be worth more than Barkley, or rather in the same tier, and then you're getting the age difference as well as a positional switch. But I gotta say, I don't expect you to be able to get that. I think Barkley's as good a flex as you can hope for in Dynasty. Yeah. But if you get Addison, T. Higgins, people kind of don't like T. Higgins a little bit right now, I feel like. Technically, Puka Nakua's value's in there, but he should be higher than that, so I guess he could be a target. But you're looking really high. These aren't easy to buy players, and because you're looking for a flex and a contender, the idea is you go to less valuable teams, but again, they're less interested in Barkley, and your competitive teams don't want to give you a better starter, so it's a really difficult trade for you to try and make. But I would look for maybe an Addison, maybe a T. Higgins, maybe a Chris Olave on a less competitive team right now. Or a Puka Nacua, I guess, but I really think his value is higher than the market thinks right now, or the ADP thinks. Does that make sense, Zach? Like, that's a hard one for me to reason through. Like, I'm pretty happy has gotten Barkley, but
yeah, and I think that if you're a contender, you're probably getting more points out of Barkley than you are out of most of those wide receivers that we just listed. Even though dynasty-wise, like, I think I would rather have Addison. I would rather have Nakua. Would rather have who else did you mention? Olave, Garrett Wilson. Like, all of those players, I would rather have than Barkley in Dynasty. But as a contender, I don't think that they're necessarily scoring you the points that Barkley does week in and week out. So, like, Yeah, like maybe you could go get Diggs, but you're not helping yourself out value wise. Then you're helping yourself out maybe points wise, but it's like that's a tough one, Chef. I like Peter's exactly right with the names that he mentioned with Garrett Wilson and Addison and Nakua and Olave. Like those are the players that you want to go get. I don't know that you're maintaining the level of production that you're getting from Barkley going forward as a contender.
Yeah, last week was disappointing, but I think you're getting better points. But so it's about which direction you want to take your team at that point. Like if you're not contending, there's a little bit more options there because you can trade down in points by switching positions for a younger player. But yeah, that's the best I've got. And I appreciate you saying this, Chef. Thanks. Hit that like button and all. Scotchy, okay, thirds of silver. Can we not with the which is what type of precious metal? Like they're not anything really, but if you amass enough of them, they can.
Aren't they bronze?
Fine. Who likes bronze? Who's walking around like, oh, I've got a lot of bronze. I'm happy. Like,
I mean, there was a whole age, Peter.
Precious metals aren't even that bad. Come on. My leagues have 5 rookie drafts. I think that's too deep in a rookie draft. Like, just have a waiver wire. But I do like the little edge that you put your league puts on it. Like, if you draft them, you can taxi squad them and have that taxi squad as deep as you want. That would make a deeper rookie draft interesting. Other than that, there's just nowhere to put them. They just end up getting dropped for your first waiver pickups.
Yep.
But whatever. I like deeper rosters, but that also makes a waiver wire list interesting, to be fair. There's a give and take in Dynasty. Play what you enjoy. I don't know. In my leagues, I can't extract a third in a trade. Well, that's fine then. Just don't trade all your thirds away. Like if people are valuing them, then just get rid of them.
And that's the thing, Scotchy, is when people ask questions to Dynasty podcasts and Dynasty analysts, we're giving you this kind of broad generalization because we don't know your league. So part of the little unsaid thing, maybe this is inside baseball, but like we don't know your leagues. And so we're giving you the best advice broadly and the best advice to help the most amount of people, but you know your leagues better than we do. So when we give you advice and you say, well, that doesn't work in my league, then take that, understand that, and then figure out what does work in your league. Because what we try to do, at least on this show, and
I was going to say that's why I like this format, and also Twitter, because it's always been this window where you can say, well, you can take the time for you to say this is what doesn't work in my league, and then there's to actually go, oh, well, I would do this instead. Yeah. Whereas generically on a podcast, you can't address it. That's kind of why I like this. But
and that's the fun part about, for me, listening to Peter. And I know I don't want to like make you embarrassed or anything, but like I really enjoy listening to Peter specifically because he and I try to be this way too, tries to teach. So it's not just here's the answer, it's this is why the answer is this way in this specific instance. But if this instance presents itself, now you have to think in a totally different direction. So yes, acquire thirds, but if thirds are being valued, now all of a sudden you have to shift your mindset to trade away thirds because other people in your league are valued. And each individual league is its own microcosm. So if we say, this player is being undervalued, and you say, well, in my league, I can't acquire him for 2 firsts. Well, obviously in your league, that player's not being undervalued. That player's being overvalued. Somewhere else, there's another player that's being undervalued. So you just have to kind of figure that out.
I would only add to that to say that I think you do the same thing. We're not trying to teach. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Like, what's the best way of getting to the right decision more often? And so I'm not teaching you the answers. I'm openly explaining how I'm trying to learn the answers. And so it's a little different, but I do think about it that way. I'm not trying to come up with a name like Chris Olave is the answer. I'm trying to come up with a decision-making tree, if you like, that gets me to the Chris Olave answer more times out of 10 than it gets me to the Sky Moore answer, just to choose two generic names. And that works better for me. If I try and out-analyze everyone, like my evaluation process is stronger than everyone else's, I think it's a losing game. We've got literal like coaches and like people who are really good at football trying to play this game, not to mention really good at analytics, like PhDs playing this game with us at this point. The idea I'm going to outdo that? No. But I can try to just simplify it down to where I'm more right more often with a process or a decision tree, if you prefer, because that word is overused. And hopefully that just keeps me competitive. You know, it means I keep moving forward instead of constantly winning, losing, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back by getting Adam Thielen right that year and then getting Puka Nacua wrong this year. And because it's always going to be a hit and miss game if you rely on the idea you're going to know the future instead of trying to, you know, just know what happens more often, more times out of 10, as it were. But anyway, I think it's fun. And also, I just enjoyed talking to you lot. And so does Zach. That's why we're here.
Absolutely.
I feel like we belabored that point just enough. You know, just enough. Nick says, I feel like most managers wouldn't give up any of those. Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's why I'm saying it's a difficult. I could probably rather just keep Barkley if I'm competitive. But because those are the wide receivers in his range of value. And if they're on competitive teams, they want their points. And if they're on non-competitive teams, they don't want the running back.
Yeah.
So you're kind of just stuck with Barkley. But if you're a non-competitive team, Barkley's tradable because you go to the competitive teams and say, I have Saquon frickin' Barkley.
Yeah.
Give me this wide receiver who's injured, or give me T. Higgins who's been disappointing lately. Give me Chris Olave because he's younger but doesn't have his points per game, so he helps you out with points per game, and I get the younger wide receiver. So there's a value differential if you like to take advantage of that. And that's kind of why we, especially on this little live stream we do, that's been so much more doing this show, talking to you all, considering where my team is at. It's become like a central way I play Dynasty because it changes everything. Like Barkley's untradeable for a competitive roster, but for a building roster, there's so many options depending on who's got who in your league. And so thinking about the team construction rather than this player, that player, it's been Dynasty's gotten a little easier thinking of it that way, to be honest. I think it's a better way of thinking of it. Because, yeah, you're right. None of those wide receivers should come from Barkley. But if you're non-competitive, that changes the landscape. But that also means if you're competitive, you know, oh, I just keep Barkley. Cool. You know, you're good. Yeah. Probably better to try for picks. No, because that's the thing. He's asking for a flex play, so he wants points. Barkley's is probably and honestly, you have Saquon Barkley. That's a pretty good flex play, man.
Yeah.
But if you're building, if a competitive team has Justin Jefferson right now, or even Devin A-Chain before he plays again, if you want to switch positions, they might be interested in. Yeah, I already said this, but I think that change. I think that's a better way of framing and trying to look for ways to move and not move players. Again, they might be impossible. Most of the times, it's very hard to find a move your league mates are willing to agree to. Most of the time, most trade offers are rejected. But I find it a better way of trying to find offers to make. Then I wouldn't trade Barkley for picks if I'm a competitive roster. That's the other part of that. So is Pop Douglas a dynasty buy? Not for me. I literally don't know who this fella is. Maybe
he's a rookie slot receiver for the Patriots, Pete. He's been fine. He's been fine. I have him rostered on a few teams because I could get him in the 5th round of rookie drafts. But that's why I have him rostered.
I'm not being tricky here. I literally just his name's never come up. I don't know anything about him. That sounds cool to me. He's probably going to turn into Wes Welker, and I have to make an apology for that. But it's just, I don't know. I'm glad I made it in time. Hey, Brian. I suck. Made a Dynasty
Right.
trade this week. I moved Mostert and a third for Kyron Williams. I mean, kind of seems sideways, but sure, I guess. Kyron Williams, we don't know he's going to come back and play, like Zach said about his high ankle sprain. I mean, maybe.
That's fine. I don't know. I think I'd still rather have Mostert.
See, this to me is where age is an infection in Dynasty. Williams being 23 versus Mostert 31 doesn't matter to me in this instance. Like
this year, yeah.
I think age poisons Dynasty because we use it as this decision maker, and that's just not the way it works. Like Kyron Williams, for the majority of time, Kyron Williams has been in the league. He's been on the waiver wire because we liked him in his rookie draft, then he did nothing. He catches a small win, which running backs all want to do. But when running backs produce like that, they relatively rarely also follow that up with another good year and another good year. That's not the way running backs typically work. So mostly he's a this year proposition. So his age doesn't matter compared to Mostert. You just have a few more years where he's going to be waiver wireable. Maybe he'll catch another few games. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the age tells the story, but
right.
Maybe I'm getting tired at this point. It's hard to rant about, but I don't think the age matters. Like, it's just who's going to get more starts this year. That's what you care about. Kyron was still fourth in points per game. Yeah, he did great.
He's fine. I don't mind acquiring Kyron Williams, especially if your team is not competitive. But you're saying that like you're worried about Miami's playoff schedule, which leads me to believe that you're probably competitive. Like Mostert has been really good.
I think the lesson to take here is that team has a monster role for a running back that they might acquire or draft or add through another means. Because I don't think they'll plan on Kyron long term, but. You know, I got nervous with watching the Giants' offense and looking at their schedule. The Giants are not going to be good, but Barkley's volume is, and Barkley is for that matter. That's actually the same statement twice, but I realize some people separate out talent from volume, unlike me. Last week was bad, but Barkley's still going to be, they still have to have plays and a certain amount of attempts, and Barkley will be a huge part of that. So he's startable on volume.
Yeah.
But, and like I said, if you're looking for this is partly why I don't schedule and rest of season. Like it's actually really unpredictable. But if you really want to play that game, you can't be thinking, and I want a young wide receiver. That's trying to have your cake and eat it too. You want points this year and you're worried about the schedule. Go look for a better running back schedule that you like, because that's apparently something you want to incorporate, and make a fair trade that direction. 9 times out of 10, I promise you, I'll say that's stupid, or I won't like those trades. Not you're stupid. The trade is stupid, because Barkley is going to be better than what you get back. You're going to ask for like James Conner and a first, and I'll be like, no, just keep Barkley. But yeah, I wouldn't weight the schedule that much. Unfortunately, we like to feel like we have control I can see the schedule is going to be bad. But honestly, it's a coin flip about whether that actually matters to your start-sit decisions. You probably should just keep rolling Barkley, but it is your team, man. You can roll it whatever way you want. But I'm telling you, most of the wide receivers in his value range that you could go and get, most of those trades are going to be rejected. Especially if they're on non-competitive teams. Also, all three of us making the Scott Fish Bowl playoffs, but I don't think I am, actually. I think I'm going to miss it.
I currently am 27 points above the cut line with my team that is 7-11.
What's the cut line?
It is currently, I'd have to look that up, but I will look it up for you, Pete, just a second.
I'm averaging 185 points a game, and
I think
I'm 9-11. Yeah,
you're
I think
too
I'm too
low.
low.
You need to win.
It sucks because a lot of my team was good. It just, fantasy.
You need to win 13 games or
no problem. I got a week.
The current cut line is 2,054.39 points, or 205 a game. So 254, and right now I'm at just north of that. I am at 2,077.
Now I got
so 23 points a game in the playoffs right now, but I got Kyler, so it's.
I've
all
got Kyler,
happening.
I've got Josh Allen, I've got Devin H. I got a pretty good rock. It just did not work out for me this year, but I'm happy with the way I drafted. How it goes sometimes. I have Hall, ETN, Stevenson, Foreman, Hubbard at running back. So I feel like Barkley was the one to move. That's again, if you're looking for points, running backs aren't what I'm moving. And like you say, you have 3 really strong running back starts. So if I'm trying to look for more points on a week, I'm trying to improve my wide receivers or tight ends, or I don't think you can improve your running backs at this point. Trying to think of Barkley as a flex, which technically he is for you, might be making this more complicated than it needs to be.
I mean, this.
I'll tell you what. Sorry, Karen.
Go for it. No, you go for it.
No, I'm still thinking of it. I was like, Stevenson, Foreman, Hubbard have some interest to some teams, but no, they're only to competitive teams, so that doesn't work. No, you have to improve your team some other way. I don't think Barkley's going to work for you. And again, I think you should actually be pretty happy to have Barkley as a third. But
yeah,
what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that this is where you go look at the teams that are non-competitive and see if anybody is rostering Thielen, see if anybody's rostering Mike Evans, see if anybody's rostering. Well, but even older than that, and see if you can go trade Barkley for Thielen or Barkley for Mike Evans or Barkley for Jacoby Myers because nobody believed. But plus, so get something back with those players. So get a pick back. You're going to gain, like Thielen right now is averaging, I don't know, like 3 or 4 points more a week than Barkley, and you could almost get well, I mean, you're not going to get a first back with him because that's not going to happen, but you could probably get a second from a non-competitive team, which is almost a first, with Thielen, so you gain points. And so again, it's not like the tough thing with running backs is if you're competitive, you're almost stuck with them in season because
the non-competitive teams don't want them.
Yep.
But you do. That's what I would do if it was my league, Chef. I wouldn't be thinking what's Barkley worth. I'd go look at the non-competitive teams in your league, see what they've got and what makes sense that actually improves your team. That's the best I can tell you.
Huh. And also look at what you have on your roster that maybe not Barkley, but maybe enticing to non-competitive teams. Maybe you have young wide receivers. Maybe you have JSN or somebody like that who hasn't produced that somebody may want to take a swing at that you might be able to get points that way. Yeah.
That's a good way of thinking. Again, I gotta think there's a better move here, but that is the way to go looking for a move. Go look at those bottom 6, really, but probably bottom 3 just to make sure they know they're losing, and see what they got, and what works. I love you guys. Thanks, Scotchy. My strategy is get late picks for guys I just don't. I mean, solid way, but like Nick said, if in your league picks are more valuable than that, then go get depth, I guess, those picks. Yeah. You can zig and zag, I guess. I have stuff to use to move up in a rookie draft. Yeah, packaging and tiering, but you got to do it. Even that has an art to it because so many people just reject when you're offering 3 things for one thing. They know that's just a trade calculator trade. People know to reject it mostly. But if you're offering something pretty decent and a draft pick, that always feels like a win. And you're just tearing up a little bit, just improving here and there, getting into. I like that move as well.
I tell you, and I talk about this ad nauseum, but like my legit favorite move is that buy on credit. Is okay, there's a player available at the 204. I don't have a second round pick because I spent my second round pick last year. What I do is I take next year's second round pick and one of those thirds, and I say, look, here's a second and a third for a second. I'm crazy. I'm giving you a third just to get your second with this second from next year. And people almost invariably are like, yeah, 2 is more than 1, and a second plus a third is more than a second. Yeah.
And to be fair, the reason I like those moves is it's not they're making a mistake, because seconds and thirds normally turn out to be nothing more often than not. So I like trades that are actually good for the other person. That's why I like to think about teams moving in different directions as well. Like, it makes sense just to have more things if you're more building, more shots at something being something, rather than taking a specific shot. Less risk, more volume. I don't know. I don't think you have to assume the other team makes a mistake to make a good, strong move, and I don't think that does. I think that's a reasonable offer for both sides. He's been promoted to not just slot. Have some respect. Sheesh. I have no respect in me. Let's face it, Kenji. It's not just a pops thing. I just don't respect a damn thing. Just fresh, except for undrafted free agents, obviously. New England's offense, no thanks. Yeah, that's kind of the way. Yeah, that's what it's. Pittsburgh, it's New England. I'm mostly just no, I don't want in. Yeah, but I'll be happy to.
Hey, they scored 6 points last week, Peter.
I stand corrected. Chef, thanks. Really appreciate the insight. I know I'd call it for it's not as highfalutin as something that could be called insight, but I'm really happy to share thoughts with you. Hopefully, it inspires a better thought, and you can go win your league, man. Yeah. Appreciate you being willing to chat to us about it. Williams has no future despite his youth. Kyron Williams, I think running backs in general, there is very, very few, and normally for a very short window, that are considered to be more than a 1-year proposition. Christian McCaffrey's different, okay? But most I think of as a 1-year proposition. If I'm looking for a running back, it's for this season. And I think that protects me from more mistakes that I would make if I was trying to player evaluate it, Because Kyron Williams has been good. I don't know how you separate out him from Javonte Williams outside of draft capital, which sounds so ethereal and nothing about the player themselves. But, just think about this year tends to be better. And value-wise, what most players value for a longer period of time is different.
Douglas is running out of the slot at 59% of the time.
Almost nice.
Yeah, almost. Like 10% lower than nice.
Like 10%. Yeah.
But he's fine. Like, he's been fine. He's scored 10, 12, 14 points in PPR the last couple of weeks. He's fine.
I swear I'm being gaslit. This man doesn't exist, and you're all just you made this
scored
up.
More,
and you're
he
like,
scored more
let's
points
pretend
this year.
There's a player called
Moore.
Pop Douglas, and we'll just gaslight him the entire. Look, Jazz Fresh is getting in on it now. I added Douglas, dropped him because he wasn't worth the points to my rebuild.
Yeah,
more value in getting the one. Yeah, for sure. 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, QB1 or QB2 before?
He may be. Yeah. No. Yeah, he may be.
Fictional player to my mind. Pulled a blockbuster to try and push me over the top this week. Oh, that sounds interesting, Ben. 0.5 PPR, 0.5 points for first down, if I'm reading this right. 1 point bonus for tight ends. Cool. Superflex traded Bryce, Roschon, a late 24 first, early 24 second for Olave McBride, 2/3 and Gainwell. He has Mahomes Hurts at QB, so Bryce was a luxury. Thoughts? And so QB. I like the trade. Just off the top, you're getting the things I prefer. Olave McBride at this point. A better in Dynasty. Bryce is an interesting asset for a building team, not for one that's competitive. So yeah, I think this is a solid trade. You're giving them a draft pick, interesting quote-unquote young running back. Quarterback in a super flex. I think it's a fairly fair trade, and you got the right side of it for your team. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I like that. JB Barkley, you might be able to use the name. That's the thing. His name value is justified, though. He's one of those running backs. Like, I'm playing him as a 1-year proposition, but Saquon Barkley's pretty good. Yeah, you could tear down for someone that's getting higher points, but you have to add a plus to it. That's one of the options we came up with, and maybe Pollard in a second would be interesting. Pacheco in a first would be interesting. Yeah, all of these are options, but I still think the best. Not all of those trades are going to be available because they're running backs. So some of those players are going to be on competitive teams who just don't want to do that. So again, it comes down to who's on what team in your league. But yeah, good ideas. Good ideas, Jay.
Pollard has not been great this year.
Oddly level. No.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're tearing down and getting a plus, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But yeah, it's a fair point. Rondell Moore is wide receiver 103 of 103 in PF grades this year. Well, that's, to be fair, he catches most of his targets behind the line of scrimmage. So he's got like an 8 on. And PFF grades, you know how strong they hit.
You don't want to. I refuse to comment about PFF. I refuse.
Yeah, I actually think Ronald Moore's pretty good, and he's going to be consistently what he has been. But if you're looking for points on that team, it's Marcus Brown, pretty obviously. So yeah, he's not going to suddenly blow up at this point. Would Higgins' value theoretically go up if he goes elsewhere? I find it kind of balances, because you've got the uncertainty with the new situation versus the potential of the new situation. So I find their value just kind of, I don't think it changes much. T. Higgins, the reason I say T. Higgins is because people are low on him right now because of recent performance, but I'm convinced the player is pretty good. And so I'll buy uncertainty. It's like buying injured. You know that's going to turn a corner eventually, more often than not. And so there's a window where you can just get a better player at a slightly lower point, or at least he's more available for fair value. Or his best outcomes resigned with Burrow. It goes back to what I was saying with Jazz Des first. I think T. Higgins is pretty good. I think top 24, top 15 wide receiver. And he's young. I don't have a short way of saying this, but no, I don't think it's because of Burrow. I don't think he's bad if he doesn't have Burrow. I don't think he's better if he doesn't have Burrow either, because Burrow clearly helps him. I don't think that weighs into my valuation of a wide receiver. And anyway, any more than I'll drop Burrow because he loses Higgins, because Higgins helps Burrow the same way Burrow helps Higgins. I think it's just too, what's the word? I think you're trying too hard to find an edge. They're probably both just pretty good players, and we shouldn't tilt over their connection versus not having their connection,
No, but by the same token, Burrow commands a big passing volume, which helps Higgins. Like that's part of what good quarterbacks do is throw a lot.
Yeah, it's Devontae Adams has still been pretty good without Aaron Rodgers, but it's less ceiling because he has to do more of it himself. But the passing volume's been there, but it's been up and down. I mean, it's still Devontae Adams.
But Rodgers is such a weird, because he's not a high volume, he's an efficient, so efficient, but he's not a big volume quarterback. Where most quarterbacks who are good quarterbacks are volume quarterbacks, because they're like, we're going to put it in his hand and throw it. And Rodgers is like, you know what? I'm not throwing this unless it's absolutely perfect. I'm going to throw it out of bounds and we'll run it again.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's just it's a little bit different animal. Like Rodgers is such a unique.
No, that is fair. But I was mostly pointing to the wide receiver results without that level of great QB play. But
yeah,
it's like Diggs. To be fair, our sample of good players moving in their prime has only really just started. We've only seen 3 or 4 in the last few years, and 20 years before that, that's probably double sample. We don't have a lot of examples of Stefan Diggs moving mid-career or T. Higgins moving mid-career.
Right.
So it's really hard to make great historical comparisons, but as far as I can tell, the best bet is they take their target share with them and their range of outcomes with them, even if they're trading down at quarterback, as long as the volume's there, to Zach's point. Buying on credit is awesome, unless you bought Tank Bigsby on credit. I was looking... I have Tank Bigsby on so many taxi squads I didn't really realize, and he's just sitting there, and I'm like, something went wrong here. You got Travis Etienne being a difference maker, and all my Tank Bigsby shares, and there's a definite connection there. In my league, if my league is 1.5 points per reception for everyone, and tight ends get an extra 0.5, is that referred to as 2.0 premium? I would call it 1 point. that's just a unique scoring system. It's PPR. It's 1.5 PPR and tight end premium.
Oh,
Probably
I
how I
guess
describe it.
yeah, I would. Yeah, that's what I would say is 1.5 point PPR and a half point premium.
Hmm.
So it's you're only getting a half point extra for tight ends, which is honestly a shrug. Like it's fine,
Yeah.
but like it's a shrug. Like what? So Russ's league or Russ's format where he does the trade addicts league are 0.75, and that's where I start to go. The top tight ends are scoring like a top 12 quarterback. So I want two of them. I want two of them and one top 5 quarterback. And now all of a sudden I have 2 top 12 quarterbacks without having to pay that, plus a top 12 tight end. So like all of a sudden I have 3 players on my team. So like Trade Addicts 11, which just drafted this past year, I drafted Josh Allen to start and then drafted Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. So Mark Andrews is effectively my QB2. Travis Kelce is my tight end. So like that team all of a sudden looks really nice. And then I actually drafted Derek Carr late because nobody was taking him. And so now I actually have a QB2 plus 2 tight ends that are scoring like top 12 quarterbacks, which makes that a really fun league. But you have to understand the premium and how much it affects and who it affects, because it only affects the guys who are catching a lot of passes. There are only about 6 or 7 tight ends a season that do that.
I was going to say most premiums don't. I mostly don't adjust. Even between half point PPR to PPR, I don't adjust much.
Yeah.
Most premiums at tight end don't do anything to my expectation or how I'll play.
It's funny because we think it creates this bigger, like a wider breadth of players that you can actually use. But what it does is the premiums take a very specific subset of players and make them more valuable. And so you have to kind of figure out what that subset is and use that.
Yeah. And that's only when it gets to be a significant enough premium that it actually has a difference. And I find a lot of it, especially when I'm evaluating a scoring system, and if it's going to that's why I prefer vanilla leagues, because figuring this out, once you get it figured out, you just play it the way you play it. But it's really finicky sometimes to figure it out. But what I'll do is convert everything to overall rank and look at it in terms of who's more startable than anyone else. And then, like Zach was saying, with a 0.75, 1.75, you'll find a few extra tight ends creep above into that. Oh, these guys are elite starts. They can replace quarterbacks on a week-by-week basis. But most of them, nothing. It just pushes most tight ends down and separates out those elite ones even further. And that's the way I'll evaluate a scoring system first off. But sorry. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, but that's why I just prefer vanilla scoring. Like what that stuff mostly does is catch out anyone who isn't willing to do the background work. But I'm actually not willing to do the background work, even though I know how to do it. So I mostly just avoid it. But you know, it's like playing the New England Patriots every week. I put this in the rules, so technically I'm winning, even though I shouldn't be. Medusa. Wow. I wonder what happened to you. 12 team start 10 PPR tight end premium. Trevor Lawrence and Judy or Kyler in a mid-second. At this point, give me Kyler in the mid-second.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to disagree with that one.
No,
okay.
it's I think Kyler and Lawrence are pretty close value-wise, but I like you've seen Kyler be a top 5 2 years. So the chances of him being a top 5 to me is better than Lawrence, who you haven't seen do that.
Yeah, so far Lawrence's range of outcomes is more good. You know, top 12. Yep. He's young. He's very good. He could easily hit the top 5 at some point, but why hope for it when you can have it?
Right.
And Judy is just a PFF grade. Like if it's points per PFF grade, sure, Judy. Otherwise, miss me with that. To be honest, I don't know why this stream is all about throwing shade at PFF grades, but there you go.
What? I don't know. What?
I don't mean it.
Never heard of him.
Sorry, I just decided to update something on my sheets for fun. Just fresh. Zach, Jaden Daniels, 606 total yards in one game. Even if the Gators suck, that's still wow. I would like him over Drake, May, and Caleb Williams because his landing spot will probably be better. Fictional players. No idea.
It'll be interesting. So Travis May has his pronged QB, 15-pronged QB model that he puts out. And he says this season, Jaden Daniels scored impossible on that. Like he's like one of the high, like this season for Jaden Daniels is one of the highest grades that he's ever seen in his model. So like, yeah, he's been fantastic. It'll be interesting to see how the draft shakes out. I know that a lot of people have been a little bit lower on Caleb Williams this year because of both some play on the field and also it's been a little weird off the field. So it'll be interesting, Jazz. This is a really like top end class with the quarterbacks. It'll be fun.
Yeah, you're not dragging me to rookie talk. I don't know. I will talk about it when I talk about it. And at quarterback, I'll probably just shrug anyway. So, Scotchy, I consider it a mostly irrelevant. Yeah, mostly irrelevant. It's like half-point PPR to PPR. It's like, I guess when you get on the extremes, whether McKissick matters or not, but otherwise. Genji, all jokes aside, DeMarcado Douglas has actually been pretty good. Oh, okay. DeMario Douglas.
He's been fine. That's Pop.
Yeah. I mean, Rondell Moore, yes, almost it feels like. But Rondell Moore exists, so, you know. Genji, I don't mind PFF. I don't mind them at all. I actually read their content. I enjoy their projections. I like how they're actually radically, maybe that's not the word, but they adjust for matchup pretty aggressively, which it shows a lot of confidence in their own metrics, which is, you know, pretty positive, I think. And they're not too bad. Actually pretty good projections. I like PFF a lot. I was just joking. That's why. Reason why I wasn't really into Tank Down, but that's the thing. Like when PFF hates something and I like it, I feel like I'm normally right. And even though they're better and much smarter than me in all other respects, whenever, like, I feel like I get a lot. I don't know. Tank Down's pretty good, man. I'll tell you. I think they should have liked him. I think Judy was he's all right. Mystic Flame, are we moving off of Trevor Lawrence? No, not really. No. Maybe adding a mid-24 first to get Stroud. Yeah, I would do that. That's
different. Yeah. Yep.
It's moving up. I love tearing up. Or just waiting it out. It all depends on the trade, but yes, I would do that trade, for example. Lawrence seems more in a buying window than a selling window, but it depends where your league's at. And if you can go up and get Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, and then you've got that other tier with Herbert leads it for me, and then you've got Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and Tua Tagovailoa, Stroud. I think that's roughly in my order. I've got Stroud at 6, whatever number I said. Yeah, I will always be interested in trading up, but also that's adding us first to. I don't think that's the best usage for a first. If you got Trevor Lawrence, I think you're pretty good. You can probably do more to improve your roster than move from Lawrence to Stroud, but I think that trade's fine. So no, I don't think we're in a selling window for Stroud, but potentially depends on the offer. I think Lawrence is going to be fine. They're okay. I like the receiver and QB grades. Yeah, I think they do a lot of hard work. There's a lot of good there. There's a lot of bad there.
My interaction with PFF is more on the fantasy, like the PFF fantasy side of things, which.
Oh yeah, I've got no insight into their NFL takes, put it that way. It's Caleb and Drake, then a mix of Penix, Daniels, Nix in 5. These are all fictional names. Like, these people don't exist. Come on. Mystic Flame, Superflex for the Trevor Lawrence questions. I stand by it. Like, yeah, I want Stroud more than Lawrence, but in most situations, I would imagine you can do more with a first and move up there, but I'm happy to do that if that's the best trade you can find. I think Lawrence is more in a buying window just because people are lower on him right now. Like, I don't think Lawrence stops being good or has stopped being good. I think he's a top 12 quarterback.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's what does the trade look like? What does my team look like?
We've already done these, Peter.
I think
you went backwards.
No, they're just repeating. I think my problem is the idea of grades is to create a single number to do something that can't be done with a single number. I think that's why they're difficult. Cody Jacobson, how will Vikings look with JJ back? Good. I think here's my longer version. The team is passing less. They had a season low. The last 2 weeks have been decreasing season low in passing percentage. And it's because without Kirk Cousins, you don't pass as much. But the games have been high scoring enough that the volume's been there. And Dobbs is good enough that it doesn't affect fantasy much. And I think that's going to continue. I think some of the ceiling's gone. On some lower scoring weeks, it's going to clap us. But I don't think you can sit Hawkinson or Addison or Justin Jefferson when he's back on the field because their range of outcomes is what it has been this season. There's a lot I can say about it, but it ultimately results in net neutral, do the exact same thing you were doing last week with him. I think Jefferson's going to be good when he gets back. Zach, is there a better, more complicated answer?
No, I think that's you hit it. They're not passing as much, but they're still good for fantasy. Having Justin Jefferson back is not going to be bad for an offense.
I hear. Yeah. He should be all right. Judy ain't worth a second. I think he's worth a second. Come on. But, yeah. No better than Rondell. I don't like the way that's negative, but at the same time, I like the way it's saying something good about Rondell.
No. He's saying that no. Pop Douglas is better than Rondell. You guys are fighting. You and Genji are fighting.
Okay.
I am instigating. I am instigating, but you are fighting.
I will defend Rondell more of this apparent player till the day I die. I'm now in. This is now the fight I will continue for the rest of my life, just for you, Genji. Don't worry about it. Any idea what happened to Marvin Mims? I like what Zach said. Like, he's doing basically what he's always done. He's pretty good at a very specific role. He's not getting as many targets as I would expect, but Russell Wilson hasn't been struggling this season.
Yeah.
Despite the somewhat better results recently, I think Marvin Mims is fine. I think some of the ceiling expectations for him might have been what was off. I liked him, to be fair. I had him just below the Tank Dell Marvin Mims. I would have had him in a similar tier. I thought he did pretty well in college. But I like the way Zach said it. He plays a high volume downfield role, which rarely carries the volume that you need to see to have a regular starting role in fantasy. Yeah. I think that's what's going on. Go to bed. I can't till you do. Scotchy says we got to go, so I'm just going to zoom through these. I don't know. You're going to think about a bunch of stats. Yeah, he's getting routes as well. I think Marvin Mims is fine. He's just a smaller role player. Yeah, the fantasy department is definitely lacking, especially with the metrics they offer users. Ass. I don't know. From a data standpoint, I'm not defending it or nothing. I'm also not attacking it. I like a lot of the tools they've got for downloading their yards per route run. That's the only place I can get it without spending $300 a month. It's a solid little app. It gives you can choose your week, choose your year. You can actually create a history for yourself. And a few of their articles that I glanced through on the week, since I have access for that particular reason, pretty solid. But yeah, I'm not in the habit of ranking fantasy creators, to be fair. Matt B says Jay, and I appreciate it. Genji, Pop Douglas, fight to the death. Any day, me and you, Genji, we're now at war for the rest of our lives of a Rondell Moore versus Pop Douglas, and I'm going to win.
Can we get some Tutu Atwell in there, too, just to really...
Yeah, let's throw him in. Throw him in. Yes, fresh. She's talking to Chef. I get to skip that one. Genji, trial by combat. I'm in. Name the spot as long as it's combat by video game. We'll do it. Puff Pass Kick. Hey, you made it. Just wanted to say hello, gentlemen. Hope you guys are well. We hope you
appreciate you. Hope you are well too.
Glad you managed to get in here before Scotchy sent us to bed.
Pete, we got there. We got there.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thanks
Marvin Mims, Elijah Moore up next. Yeah.
Rondo Moore for life.
Yeah.